sage, monk, warrior. When a man becomes an adult, the debt that corresponds to his personal inclinations is given to him by the god. It is said that above all, the pinnacle of these debts is the swords mage. The boy was sure that he would become a sword mage without a doubt, not because he aspired to it, but because the reward for his efforts. The priest asked Mr. Alsrod to open his eyes to tell him his duty. Some time ago, Mr. Alsrod was assisted by a girl. She noted that he was unusually awake today. The Lord replied to the girl named Laviala that he was also awake today. The girl agreed and added that it was because Laviala had served him as his right hand for 17 years. The Lord added that he too with today's ceremony of receiving his debt. The lad confidently stated that he was human, that he would become a sword mage to end the 100-year-old civil war. Laviella asked if Mr. Alsrod would please not seek adventure in the 100-year civil war. She would like him to become a sage like her and join a research organization. The Lord replied that whether one fights or wishes for peace, there is no need to worry when one has power. Ever since he was a child, he was always looking for power. His mother always smiled after he said he would protect everyone by becoming a sword mage. Mr. Alsword wanted to become stronger so that he could also protect his mother. That might have been the case in the beginning. The priest pointed out that it was the Viscount's younger brother, Mr. Alsrod, and asked him to follow him. The priest announced that he was beginning the ceremony of appropriation. He informs the Lord that he will be able to open his eyes when the priest tells him to, but until then, he asks him to keep them closed. Henceforth, the god bequeaths to Mr. Alsrod the debt that suits him. Mr. Alsrod mentally prayed to be told that his duty was to the swordsman mage. The Lord kept thinking about what it was. Maybe he got a class debt as a great sage or something similar. The priest was a bit puzzled by the name of the debt, but added that no doubt that was what it was called. Mr. Alsword was puzzled as to what this debt was that made the priest doubt the god. He decided not to go deeper into thought. For now, his future would be made known. The priest asked Mr. Alsword to open his eyes and stated that his duty was to Oda Nobunaga. The gentleman repeated the name of the debt and apologizing, clarified what the hell kind of debt it was. The boy said that it was some kind of mistake. Let the priest ask about his debt again. The priest replied that they could not doubt the word of God, but this also worried the priest and he asked again. He was answered that there was nothing wrong with the first answer. The priest is afraid that Aslord's debt cannot be changed. The Lord thought about how that was impossible. Oda Nobunaga, what the hell else is this debt? How is it even pronounced? Questions were popping up in his mind in great numbers. The main thing is that he is now stuck with the Oda Nobunaga debt, and he will have to live with that burden. The priest pointed out that in any case, Mr. Aslord has been granted divine protection of the debt called Oda Nobunaga. If he lived up to this protection, peace and prosperity were promised to him. Mr. Aslord remarked that the priest should only not tell him that his brother had told the priest to insult the Lord. The priest replied that this was impossible. He could only deliver the word of the Lord. Laviella turned to the master and asked him to perk up. The boy replied that there was no reason to cheer up. Right now he wanted to go to bed. The girl clarified if he had gotten a terrible debt. Mr. Alsrod replied to the girl that his debt was Oda Nobunaga. Laviella hugged him from behind and asked if she did that, would he feel better? Even if only a little. It must be so hard for him. He always is, despite all his labors. Alsrod apologized to the girl for making her worry. He noted that it was okay and he would change his attitude about it. Laviella replied to the gentleman that it is wonderful. Alsword-san pointed out that Oda Nobunaga could be a great cheater duty. Therefore, all he could do was count on a miracle. Alsword visited his brother. The one sitting on the throne remarked his brother had unexpectedly received a mysterious debt, and that was bad, especially when he wanted that fine duty of a swordsman mage. His brother added that he was the one who thought he had this rather ordinary duty when he was told he was a warrior. Alsword's brother noted that he should have thanked God that it was better than Oda Nobunaga. Mr. Alsrod noted that he had heard that his brother's first battle after receiving his debt was a crushing defeat. Brother Alsrod stated that it is easy to complain about others. The rank of a nobleman is not determined by companies alone. However, Brother Alsrod was glad that he had come of age. He clarified if his brother knew that the prefecture bordering Naval was going to attack from Manaria. Therefore, he wants Alsrod to head to that fortress immediately. It is a reward fortress. He will head to the key point of their defense. He needs to defend it all the way. If they lose something like the fortress and he disgracefully escapes, he'll be punished by the general. It's an adult's duty. Fortress rewards. Obviously, this is passing on, and if things go badly, Alsrod is a dead man. Alsrod's brother urged him to answer him, for he is a vassal and brother of the Lord. He urged him to risk his life defending the lands of Neuville inherited from his father. To protect the territories and the people at the cost of his life was the duty of the Lord's family. Alsrod stated that he would do so, and now he must survive. Laviella stated that this is outrageous. How can her lord go to the reward fortress as if his brother's goal is to kill Lord Alsword? The lord himself should go to raise morale. In any case, if the fortress goes, the whole territory of Neuville will be in danger. Alsrod agreed, and he realized that adding oil to the fire was a mistake. Laviella turned to the lord and asked, "On the contrary, why not conspire with Mean, the enemy?" The lord worriedly told the girl what she would do if his brother's spies were. Vassals clearly follow the lord because he is merciful to them. A vassal has the right to abandon his lord if he treats them horribly. Laviella noted that it was pointless to go there if he died. Even if the enemy of the hostile lord betrayed him, they would come up with a plan on how to use that to their advantage. Alsrod realized that undoubtedly, if he played his cards right, he could occupy a higher position than he did now. A girl appeared and welcomed her brother back. Mr. Alsrod turned to his sister named Althea and asked her to take it easy if she was tired. The girl noted that she had heard that he was heading to the fortress. While he was there, she would not be able to see him. The lord stated that betrayal was unacceptable. He would not be able to take Althea with him. Laviella agreed. If they betrayed the lord, Althea would be waiting. She added that, however, there are about 250 men in the fortress and over 2,000 enemies. It didn't matter what he thought. Alsrod replied that even so, he has no choice but to do it because it is his duty. Althea asked his assistant to please take care of her brother. Laviella asked her to leave it to her. Alsrod-san hopes Oda Nobunaga is a class duty. Alsrod came to the tower. The people rejoiced that it was the lord's younger brother. The guards greeted him. Alsrod noted that it was he, the commander of this castle. The man replied that his name was Shivik Krut, and he should report to him, so if he would follow him. They built a fort on the other side of the river in Manaria territory. Several squads went to build camps. Alsrod asked the general when the enemy forces had launched their attack. The man replied that it was 2 months ago. He had requested additional personnel to bolster the defenses. His appeals had been denied until now. Alsrod was angry, thinking of his brother. He thinks everything will be fine until he dies, even if that means Neuville in ruins. Actually, these passages bypassing the fort were built in by enemy builders or scaling the slope. It looked like they were going to sweep them away in one fell swoop sooner rather than later. The general noted that they don't know how soon. The fortress itself is strong. It will hold one way or another. But if the gates are breached even once when their soldiers are so exhausted. Alsrod noted that the situation looked worse than he had anticipated. Even if the fortress didn't fall into enemy hands for a while, or even if he died, no matter what happened, his brother would be happy. He will survive and exact his revenge. Suddenly, one of the guards was killed. The spy said it was his mistake. Neuville will disappear sooner or later if this continues. What did it matter if it happened a little sooner? Alsrod awoke to a noise. The warriors shouted, asking where the log locking the gate had gone, and alerting them that Manaria's soldiers were at the gate. Alsrod met Laviella and ordered her to stay close. They would take control of the situation. The lord noted that these were mountain trails, about 500 attackers. Their men are so shaken by the night attack, and the traitors jumping out of the shadows. And with 500 enemy soldiers, they don't stand a chance of winning. Suddenly, a general appeared and turned to the lord and said that he was afraid that this was the end for them. They would all die in battle. Mr. Alsrod thought of everything because he hated being the little lord's second son. The lord urged Laviella to run away from here. If she was alone, she could get out one way or another. and not for sure they won't take male captives, and she's very nice, so. The girl asked him not to say she was nice at a time like this. She stated that she would fight because it was her duty to serve him. Alsrod clarified then what is the best way for them to survive. The girl replied that they need to kick out all the opponents. The boy replied that sounded a little too much. Alsord heard that it was nonsense. If it was him, he could overcome many things because his duty concealed to himself the potential to become the supreme ruler. Lord Alsrod experienced the feeling that he was hearing his inner voice, and he decided what he would do if he did not overcome it. The Lord told Lavila that he would protect her, and she just needed to keep an eye on him. The girl understood him and replied that she expected him to do the same. Mr. Alsrod heard himself being urged to jump right into the ranks of the enemy. An inner voice admired him, urging him to put on a show for them. A notification has appeared about the awakening of a unique ability, the power of the Supreme Ruler. Physical abilities doubled in combat. Alsrod noted that voice again. There was nothing he could do but believe what he didn't hear. He's counting on him, Oda Nobunaga's debt. His enemies intended to kill him. However, he vanished somewhere, and it shocked them. Alsrod had killed their commander. The enemies were outraged. How dare he kill their commander? Some didn't realize what they were doing since there was only one enemy here. They should hurry up and kill him. Alsord realized that no matter how many opponents there were, their movements were slow. Each of these soldiers, their attacks couldn't even hit him. The inner voice noted that naturally, only someone who had the ability to be a supreme ruler could stop the other. Mitsuhide also gained power for a short period of time. As expected from Alsrod's inner voice, this is the name of a hero from another world. However, for now, he should focus on survival. Laviala noted that her master's swordsmanship had become incredible. Alsord to ask everyone to hold on, just a little longer and the siege will fall. Alsord alerted that he was going down. They need to hold here and he would be back. Laviala can rest assured. Alsord turned to Shavik and ordered him to get the builders out, fix and close the gate. The commander took his orders. Alsrod slew the giant and everyone was shocked. The Lord stated that anyone who crosses this gate will be crushed by Alsord. Alsord will kill anyone who enters this fort. The Lord's people cheered up and agreed with him that they would do this. They would follow the Lord. The enemy commander ordered them to kill Alsord. If they pull it off, consider the fort in their hands. They didn't understand what was wrong with this guy's crazy fighting style. Alsrod replied as if he cared. From now on, he would show them the strength of his duty. Alsrod told them to get out of the way and started attacking. The enemies shouted a temporary retreat. Alsrod exhaled, noting that they had all fled. Laviala shouted that no, she wasn't done yet, not until she reached Mr. Alsrod. Alsrod rushed to her, noting that he had told her to wait at the fort. The girl screamed that she was Laviala Avayu. She couldn't let Mr. Alsrod die alone. Alsrod realized that there was nothing to be done, because she had decided that he had made a suicidal decision. She has been with him since he was born, so it is only natural that she wishes to be by his side at the moment of his death. However, he is not going to die in this place, so she has to survive with him as well. The inner voice praised the guy and said that the death of him or his property would bore him, so let him show his determination. He activated a special ability, Lord's Pride. When defending someone, the attack is doubled. He defeated the enemy and rushed to Lavielle, asking her if she was all right. The girl apologized to him. She was afraid to leave him alone. He hugged her and stated that he would tell her off later, but as it was, he was glad she was in one piece. The girl sobbing noted that she praised God that Alsrod was alive. The guy replied that those were his words and it was the girl who was in danger. Laviella replied that he had rushed there alone and she thought he had been killed. She was so worried, very worried. Alsrod pointed out that it was his fault and stated that if she calmed down, let her use healing magic on him. He was greatly exhausted by the power of this work. Alsrod remembered what that voice had said when he was defending his property. Alsrod hugged Laviella sharply and stated that he didn't want to lose her. The girl hugged him back and stated that she wasn't going anywhere. Even if she left him, he would bring her back. The commander of the enemy army said that it was impossible. Even though their army was superior, they still escaped. One of the enemy soldiers who escaped replied that with all due respect, most of their forces were left behind by just one young officer. The commander noted the young officer. He assumes this is the same reinforcement they had yesterday. However, was there any such valiant man among the naval? The soldier replied that he did not know, but one thing they had definitely confirmed. Of the reinforcements, some elven woman and Alsrod naval had arrived, and no one else. Alsrod and Laviala looked at Neuville's flag, noting that they had defended it. The girl declared that this was his triumphant victory. The soldiers were overjoyed and cheered wildly for their hero. Alsrod stated that the Manarians had been driven back, the corpses of their enemies lying at the foot of their fortress. Victory was for the people of Neuville. The commander turned to Alsrod and said that he would immediately pass the information about the battle to the Viscount of Neuville Castle. Every soldier in that fortress had witnessed everything that had happened. Alsrod replied that he should not, for he did not know how things would have turned out if only he had been there. It is a credit to everyone, after which he thanked the commander. The commander noted that Alsrod himself was the commander of this fort, so he could address him simply by the name Civic. The defensive battle had gone well for them, but it hadn't solved anything. Instead of continuing their defense, why don't they try to occupy their territory? The enemy has even built a fort on the opposite bank. They need to force them to leave somehow, or their position will become more difficult. This defeat will make them wary, and there is also the possibility of the next general offensive, so they need to take action. Laviella suggested the idea of a night attack at a certain place, the noise of the river drowning out the sound of footsteps. The commander replied that they did not have enough forces to take the fort, however. Their fort is not that big, but is surrounded by several camps. Laviella stated that everything is useless, nothing comes to mind. Alsrod was thinking about a plan to break through a large army with the help of a small handful of soldiers. He heard an inner voice telling him that he had nothing to worry about, for he had the strength and experience of a great ruler. Alsrod remarked that this was a good idea. It could be called a cunning plan. He urged Laviella and the commander to listen to him. They would build something that would be a major nuisance to their enemies right at their throats. They wouldn't be able to turn the tide of the war without doing something so unexpected. Alsrod thought they would tell him it was impossible or something like that. He decided to ask the commander about the traitor. Civic told him that he had dealt with the moment they were fighting the enemy. One of his wounded subordinates had told him about him and pointed out the traitor's escape route. This ended Alsrod's worries about the future, whereupon he declared that they would do so in 2 days, during the new moon. 2 days passed and night came. Alsrod clarified about any changes on the enemy side. The commander noted that they seemed to have done nothing to stop the traitor from leaking information. Alsrod noted that this is all thanks to the commander and his staff. Alsrod encouraged everyone to listen to him and stated that it is a race against time. There is no need to think about what happens if they can't make it before sunrise. He urged them to give their best effort if they don't want to die. Before, he has already told them what they need to do, and he is counting on them. Alsrod noted that their work went beyond what he had imagined. 3 days ago during the defense of the fort, maybe because he was fighting alone on the front lines. The remaining soldiers, or rather his comrades in arms, think it's okay to risk their lives for him. It is also related to the mysterious work of Oda Nobunaga. Assuming it's a hero's name, perhaps his heroic charisma also resides in Alsrod. A while later, Alsrod stated that thanks to all the soldiers, they made it in time. This is their night fortress. Alsrod's inner voice noted that this was excellent work. This was the strategy of a great ruler. If someone builds a fort in enemy territory in 1 day, the enemy will lose spirit, sowing chaos in the troops. An inner voice urged him to use this power to his advantage. Alsrod turned to Oda Nobunaga and asked him if he was a hero. The inner voice confirmed it. Oda Nobunaga is the name of a great ruler. Well, now it's just a profession name. The inner voice stated that it wasn't going to manipulate him, so he could be calm. It would be a waste of time. He too was laughed at as a fool in his youth, but he was able to capture everything underneath them for hours. And it was also well within Alsrod's power to do so as well. The enemies couldn't believe why the naval flag was in Manaria territory. The commander ordered them to stay focused. It was a bluff at best, after which he ordered the deployment of all their forces. The enemies headed for the attack. Alsrod urged everyone to hold their positions to the last man. Laviala ordered the archer to give firing. The enemies noted that it was raining arrows, and if they continued, it would be a field of death for them. The enemies mentioned that they needed to retreat. That way, they were easy prey. Laviala noted that there was no way for them to get up here. This is when the enemies noticed that they could come to one place. Alsrod was alerted that Manaria soldiers had infiltrated the fort. Alsrod noted that they were already here and ordered anyone who infiltrated to be killed. Civic admitted that he was worried about how effective such a fort would be, but it seems to be serving its purpose. It occurred to Alsrod intuitively that adding structural height could create a dirt fort. One of the enemy soldiers noted that they weren't here, and another suggested he look over there. The path was precipitous. Alsrod's inner voice stated that it was a trench. After that path, the warriors are abruptly stumped and stopped. The enemies realized they weren't here, and where they had gone, it turned out they were up there and they hadn't noticed them. One of the enemy soldiers offered to use the boat as a bridge. Laviala said that he was not afraid of the enemies who had fallen for Alsrod's trick. At least it will never lose to people who have foolishly and naively gotten in their way. Alsrod stated that he was also surprised at how effective this strategy was. The enemies informed their commander that they could not attack, as the losses had already exceeded 100 men. The commander hesitated and announced a temporary retreat. Civic asked Alsrod if they should rush in pursuit. Alsrod replied that no, they should not. They still had fewer soldiers. The enemies would have the advantage once they left the fort. Alsrod announced that all the soldiers fought well. If it wasn't for courage, this strategy wouldn't work. He is grateful to them. The soldiers rejoiced for Naval and for Alsrod. After receiving news of Naval's victory, older brother Geisel sent additional reinforcements to the fortress of Negrad. The war on the side of Manaria had turned into a power struggle, so the situation returned to normal. Having received orders from his brother to return, Alsrod prepared to leave. The Salatis wished Alsrod a good journey. Commander Civic remarked that he was an incomparable hero who made it possible for them to defend Naval. Alsrod replied that if he is a hero, then I am not all of them either. He urged them to fight, sticking out his chest in pride. An inner voice noted that he couldn't resist bragging. Laviala stated that she thought she knew everything about Alsrod, but the results of the war were beyond what she had imagined. Alsrod stated that, however, they had exceeded her expectations. Laviala stated that she wished he had told her about that power right away. He had behaved terribly in hiding it from her. Alsrod replied that he himself had never imagined he would be so strong. It was probably because of his work. Laviala asked if he was talking about Oda Nobunaga. Alsrod pointed out that even a magic swordsman would be something not so special, and undoubtedly its strongest work. Geisel stated that for starters, he believes he should apologize for calling his work worthless. His accomplishments are considered one of the greatest in their family. As a result, the surrounding village will be united, and he will be given the status of Baron. Alsrod replied that he understood and would be grateful for such good fortune. The Kingdom of the Holy Lion. The country is divided into 60 prefectures, each ruled by a lord who can make laws in his own territory. Nouvel is not a very powerful noble family with a plus or minus 1.5 counties out of 10. A small, underpowered aristocrat. While the Manaria family, who started the previous conflict, controls not a district, but an entire prefecture. Kiyohata may have settled the matter and won for the moment, but it won't last long. He will begin preparations to inherit the title of Viscount from his brother. Alsrod returned home, and Althea welcomed her brother home in tears, noting that he had returned. He apologized to her, which made her worry. He should have spent more time with her. Althea noted that just the house is all old and dusty. Alsrod stated that they would have a new house now. Althea stated to her brother, something too sudden. A short while later, Alsrod inquired to his little sister how she liked the new house. The girl replied that it was very comfortable, thanked her brother. Now that he has the title and powers, he was able to build a new home for his sister to help if treatment. This structure could also be used as a line of defense. In case of an emergency, they could use it as a fortress. The number of men willing to serve under him has been growing since the last battle. But he would not immediately start a revolution. I would not have a valid excuse. An inner voice pointed out, to become a ruler, they must first lay the groundwork. Forgetting the first prefecture was a difficult task, but it will be easier to make 10 out of 5. All in due time, the ruler will take control of the entire Omari province after defeating Imagawa Yoshimoto. He doesn't really understand what he said. Well, even if he is from another world, Alsrod is genuinely glad to have experienced people around him. An inner voice noted that he was now in a difficult situation in Domonu, so he needed to prepare. Laviala noted that Alsrod's face often changed. He clarified with the girl who was there, to which she noted that he had visitors. Commander Civic and the rest of the soldiers from the reward fortress had arrived. They greeted Baron Alsrod. Alsrod was glad to see Civic again and asked him what had happened. Civic replied that he had been specifically relieved of his position and a new man had been put in charge of the fort. He was puzzled as to what the soldiers they had fought together at the river were doing here, and some other big guy with them. Civic replied that if possible, he would like to serve under him as his assistant. Alsrod replied that he would be only too happy to do so and let his brother know. Civic declared that even if his bones were ground and crushed to dust, he would serve him to the very end. Alsrod shook his hand and thanked him, adding that he hoped for his help. An inner voice noted that the little man should focus on improving the economy. People would not listen to a ruler without money. Alsrod understood it and clarified how he should solve it. Oda Nobunaga replied that it was simple. He needed to keep the trade counters from operating without paying taxes, and he needed to try it on a small scale first. Seijo Castle. When the merchants make a profit, they will also get their share. Taxes should be collected where the money is actually available. Collecting it from 1-2 people would not be such a big problem. The city and surrounding area will undoubtedly change. Half a year later. Alsrod noted that the market he had previously walked through as a child had never been so busy. It was like a dream come true, and he was glad it had been such a success. Laviala noted that more and more people from Kiyohata Castle are coming to them. The number of officers has also increased and they continue to update their military records. Laviella placed a huge stack of documents on his desk and happily stated that they had also received an offer from the elf. Alsrod stated that he didn't have time to rewrite the documents, and there were more and more of them every hour. Laviella noted that Alsrod seems to have a newfound charm. Everyone around him says he is a man of action, not words. Alsrod noted that he knew she would praise him, so he takes 3 points off her. Laviella stated that he was mean and added that she thought something called charisma. Something like that awakened in him. Alsrod noted that something like that. Maybe it's because of Oda Nobunaga. Laviella added that it's all because of his own abilities, and she was thinking, it's not because of the job he got. It's because of the qualities that were in him from the beginning. Because Alsrod-san is incredible. Alsrod was embarrassed and thanked the girl. Alsrod greeted his older brother. Geisel noted that he was out hunting and wanted to check on him. Alsrod shared that his foster is ahead of him. Geisel to his younger brother and asked why he has so many warriors here. Alsrod replied that for his exploits in the recent victory, many people had expressed a desire to join him. His elder brother's advisor noted that it was a difficult task to feed so many warriors, however. Alsrod stated that it was not a problem. The Anja removed some of their empty land to lease to the humans to get a bigger harvest. Because of this, Alsrod was able to distribute more land to his vassals. Geisel shared that he was interested because he was already just his subject, so he didn't have to do as much. Alsrod can't deny it, but given the defense of the area, this number is absolutely necessary to protect Kiyohata. Geisel accepted this information and told his brother to keep working on it. Alsrod noted that it was only natural for a younger brother to help his older brother. Laviala shared with Alsrod that it seems his sibling is afraid of him. Perhaps he is afraid of losing his place to a child of his own, no less. Alsrod noted that he is too predictable. Alsrod stated that he would give an amulet to his brother's wife that should help deliver the child. He asked Lavielle to keep gathering information on him. His brother doesn't like the idea of him going too well. He will definitely try to kill Alsrod in the near future, and that's when he will strike back. The young lad apologized and informed Alsrod that his brother wanted him dead and outlined his plan. He would feign illness to summon Alsrod to the castle and kill him there. Laviala asked the young man to accept the money as a token of their gratitude. Alsrod noted that a letter received from another man at his brother's castle spoke of the same pattern. Laviella noted that he plans to kill him by pretending to be sick, and the odds are really stacked in their favor. Alsrod stated he would be happy for his brother to die of illness. Laviella remarks on how hard it would be for him to kill his own brother. Alsrod can't deny the fact that it is his brother by blood, but the people he wants to protect, his sister, Laviella, and Naval's men. An inner voice noted that this was true. Even if they are family, an enemy is still an enemy. Alsrod stated to Laviella that it was not a problem. Right now, only Althea was left of his family and he had no one else. Laviella stated that she would be there for him and would be able to help him in his time of need. Alsrod took her hands in his and declared that he would be the new ruler of Naval and would not let his people down. He asked her to please stay with him until his death. Laviella replied that she knew. She had been blessed with the opportunity to meet him since his birth, and he had even saved her life once. Laviella asked him not to laugh, to which Alsrod apologized and remarked that she was just being so nice. Afterward, they kissed. Alsrod told Laviella that if she wanted, she could sleep a little longer. The girl rose abruptly on the bed and wished Alsrod good morning. Alsrod awkwardly stated that she didn't have such large breasts, or rather he hadn't seen them, after which he noted her facial expression. The girl asked him not to say such a thing about her. Geisel was angry that his damn brother, even though he was sick, didn't want to visit him. He didn't realize who he thought he was. His older brother realized that to lure him here, he would need a bigger bait. He said what he had in mind and told his younger brother to tell him that he planned to give him the throne. Alsrod was asked why he had so many points with him, to which he replied that he was going to inherit the throne, and it would be rude to come here without them. The counselor responded that, however, it makes Mr. Geyser worry. Laviella pointed out that there were many strong men in the ranks of their army, so there was nothing to worry about. The counselor said he understood and asked Mr. Alsrod to follow him. His men would wait for him here. Laviella replied that no, their men would wait for them in the castle garden. The counselor noted, "What if something happened?" Laviella noted how rudely he speaks to Alsrod, who will ascend to the throne today. What right does he have to go against his orders? The counselor asked to follow him. Laviella spotted one assassin and immediately eliminated him, alerting her master. The counselor also tried to strike at Alsrod, but was quicker here. He was outraged that an assassin was doing here and they were planning to kill him. Immediately, all of his brother's soldiers swarmed towards him. Alsrod used a special ability. The Lord's power activated, his accuracy and strength doubled. Commander Civic asked Alsrod-san to leave it to them. He should go after his brother. Alsrod realized that his brother couldn't be allowed to escape. He called Laviella with him, for when he protects her, he is much stronger. Literally a moment later, he activated a special ability, Ruler's Pride. When protecting someone, the attack is doubled. The inner voice noted that this was the true power of a lord, and he needed to keep it up. Alsrod has a bonus to experience growth. Passive ability is a man taking over the world. He instills fear in his enemies, but doesn't work but confident. Alsrod ordered them all to move out of the way. Alsrod confronted one of the soldiers and assumed his job was berserk. He could applaud him for daring to attack him, sacrificing his life. However, he should not stand in his way. Geyser lay on his bed under a blanket and said that he was the ruler, still is, and will always be. There was no way he could do that. Alsrod appeared in his room and noted that whatever his brother said, nothing would change. He could not escape, and moreover, all his men were guarding the corridors. Alsrod would keep him alive, and if he handed him the throne. The older brother began to argue that this was some kind of misunderstanding, and he didn't ask for this. One Nobunaga stated that just hearing his brother's voice made him furious. Geyser stated that he knows he will hand over the rule over all of Naval to Alsrod. He will be the ruler of all their lands from now on. Alsrod thanked him for the honor. Geyser, at that moment, drew his blade from behind his back and swung at his brother, wishing him dead. But Alsrod was faster and pierced him with his sword. Laviella dropped to one knee and declared that it was a magnificent attack. She noted that he was now a viscount, to which Alsrod stated that one viscount would not be enough for him. Even Mineria Iris Calthus was named as such after taking only one county. He needs to get stronger to defend Naval, and he will start by taking all the counties of Fordnelia. Civic alerted Alsrod that they had scoured the entire castle and restricted the enemy's movements. Alsrod ordered his word to be spread that he would now rule Naval. Not only will he protect Naval, but he will go even further. In other words, he plans to become a lord. Watch him closely. A new era is coming. An era of their lands under one banner. The priest congratulated Viscount Naval on receiving this title. Alsrod replied to Priest Elnoth that he had done nothing special. The priest added that he would only think of becoming a Viscount. How unfortunate it was that Geyser had died because of his illness. Alsrod stated that as his brother, he felt terrible about not being able to help him in any way. They spread the rumor that his brother died from illness. The priest clarified if his work with Oda Nobunaga is still connected. He was worried that something bad might happen to him because of her. Alsrod replied that it was nothing like that. On the contrary, he was glad to have her, because thanks to her, he had become a Viscount. The priest added that it was a good thing. He planned to do a voice diagnostic with Oda Nobunaga today. Voice diagnosis is a kind of divination. If Alsrod remembers correctly, you can use it to partially know your destiny. He's kind of excited about it, and what will be the case with the blue job? The priest sobbingly stated that Oda Nobunaga intends to become a demon lord. Oda Nobunaga told Alsrod that this priest has a good eye. He will surely become known as the demon lord. Alsrod laughed. The priest apologized profusely and asked if he was not feeling well. Alsrod said for the best. Laviella noted that the demon lord was still a lord, a perfect job for Alsrod, who aimed to become king. Alsrod stated that he would do his best to be a magnanimous ruler and avoid the claws of evil. The priest noted that even though the royal family has fallen into decline, it still exists, and he thinks that it is not worth mentioning it often. Alsrod asked the meeting not to worry. If the chance came, he would feel the crown. Here he remembered something and checked with Laviella to see if she had gotten her job yet. That's good. Why don't she go with the priest to the watch outside the castle to get it? The priest pointed out that if it was in the chapel, there would be no problem. The girl replied that she realized if getting a job would help him, she would be only too happy. Alsrod thought it would be nice, getting a normal job unlike his. While Laviella was at the ceremony, he was thinking about expanding their territories. To expand, they would need a good plan to take out their enemies one by one. If they could make a pact not to attack, then they could turn their sights on Viscount Marl. Laviella has informed her lord that her job is archer. Alrod was shocked and remarked that she was much more normal than he thought. Laviella replied that when compared to his, maybe. With the archer, she gets an incredible stamina boost, and any bow attacks are enhanced by 30%. She wants to try it out now and is calling Alsrod with her. Alsrod noted that the girl was so excited about it that she had forgotten to knock. The girl apologized. She really was very happy about it. Laviella sighed and noted that it was amazing. Her mind was calm and it felt a rush of energy. No doubt she's at the peak of her powers right now. Everyone was shocked by Laviella's attack. It would be instant death. Alsrod remarked that it was incredible. He would be able to become the strongest archer in the entire world. That way, she would be able to fight on the battlefield without any problems. Laviella noted that she would now be able to defeat Alsrod's enemies while staying close to him. With her abilities, she would have no problem commanding elves. He asked her to keep practicing, for the time when her abilities would be useful was near. They are about to undertake the largest territorial operation in the history of Viscount Naval. He gathered his army and marched towards the Viscountcy of Marl in the east. The commander of the Soldates of Marl called to show these Navulians where they belonged, and they rushed to attack. There was an attack from the naval side, and it was unclear where it came from. Some of Marl's soldiers began to flee the battlefield. The commander ordered them not to run and called them cowards. At that moment, the army of Naval appeared. One of the soldiers told the cavalry that he would report to Viscount Marl immediately. It would take time for them to reach them. The Viscount noted that their ranks had been broken. Perhaps they should retreat. Such pressure from a weak ruler. The Viscount has been informed that the enemy is approaching the main camp, and in front of them all is Alsrod himself. Viscount Marl called him an idiot. The archers were ordered to attack. Some time ago, Alsrod was asked if he personally wanted to break into the enemy camp. It's dangerous. he needs to be more judicious. They already know how Viscount Marl is well prepared for protracted battles, but what he's definitely not expecting is his personal attack on the main camp. Alsrod clarified someone will be able to be his shield while they make their way to their camp. One guy raised his hand and asked for permission to act as his shield. Alsrod stated that he was moved by his bravery. Let him give his name. Marl's army was terrified. The Nevavulians would not stop. The Viscount said he didn't care. Let them keep firing. The soldier pointed out that it was useless, but he didn't have time to finish his sentence as he was killed. Alsrod introduced himself to them and said that he was here to deal with Viscount Marl. The soldiers noted that he had just given his name. They realized that he was Viscount Nevul, and if they killed him, then they would immediately win. Alsrod ordered them to move out of the way. Viscount Marl, meanwhile, threw himself on the run. Oda Nobunaga noted how weak that Viscount was. Even though he was the same in stature, it was unbelievable. Viscount Marl declared that he wasn't going to just die here. Laviella fired an arrow and hit him right in the leg. The Viscount fell down and screamed that someone had shot him in the leg. Laviella alerted her soldiers nearby that she was the strongest archer and the most trusted aide to Viscount Nevul. She had just shot the cowardly fleeing Viscount Marl. Alsrod agreed that yes, she was as hopeful as ever. Alsrod apologized to Viscount Marl and noted that his time in this life was over. He would be the one to accomplish what was destined. After the head of the family was defeated, House Marl surrendered. The family received some land and joined their vassals. And just 6 months after defeating Viscount Marl, Alsrod would already rule 7 of the 12 counties of Fordanella Prefecture. A young girl appeared in Alsrod's office and greeted the lord. He also thanked him for the invitation. His name is Fenelia, and she is a merchant. Word travels fast. She has just been told that he has become an earl. Alsrod stated that this is true, and the territory has expanded as well. It has gotten so large that it is already hard for her to manage alone. It was easy to get permission to use the title of earl. Money easily inclines the royal family. Fenelia used to be an oil merchant. It seems that was how he was able to get rich and expand his range. Fenelia replied that as far as he was concerned, thanks to him getting the title of count, the trade had gone up, so he would be happy to help him. Alsrod thinks he's about imposing taxes on a small shop and allowing people to open them without joining a commercial association. Alsrod noted that he might run in, well, you want him to look around for any underdeveloped towns nearby. Fenelia stated that will be done. The reason Fenelia was assigned to manage commerce was to renegotiate their relationship with Mineria. Sometime later, during the truce, a messenger arrived, naming Alsrod as Count. A month passed. This was the first time they had met. The man introduced himself, saying that he had arrived as a messenger from Count Blantyre to congratulate him on receiving the title of Count. Alsrod is glad to hear this from the painfully experienced earl. The messenger noted that Mineria is preparing to move his forces northward. It is there that Count Blantyre hopes to forge a stronger alliance. He wants to organize a meeting between the two counts at a temple near the border of their counties. Alsrod mentally noted that sometimes ambassadors were enough for something like that, but it could also be an active threat, meaning they could attack at any moment. Laviella asked her lord to be careful. This could be a ploy on their part. The messenger stated that this decision was left to him. Alsrod replied that he thought he would accept the offer. That way, they would not have to pay attention to the west. The messenger noted that, as expected from Count Nevul, a wise decision. Laviella asked him indignantly, wondering if he had passed to mock Alsrod. Let him then not blame her if she attacked him right now. Pulsanic noted that in that case, they would accept the challenge. Alsrod ordered a halt. He would meet with Count Blantyre of Mineria, Isles Galtis. Laviella checked with her lord as to why he had agreed. Outwardly, he was, but acted arrogant despite the fact that he was now an earl. Alsrod remarked that all was well. If the meeting made the same impression, Mineria would be ashamed that she had underestimated him. He needs to train the warriors he will take with him, who will be equal in number and strength to the royal guard. Laviella didn't see how he would do it in such a short time. Alsrod stated that he has his own methods. He's not one to make excuses. The fact is that after being made an earl, he was given a new ability. He was given the title of Count and the ability Order of the Ruler. The reliability and concentration of soldiers under command was increased by 50%. He's going to create a small elite army. If you let people realize that they are special, these selected ones will be motivated and proud of the count. Even if it is not large, the movement of the army makes it clear how competent the leader that runs the army is. It is important to remind Manaria that the event of Fort Reward was not an accident. Manaria might think his nascent powers could be contained in the form of an alliance. Not an easy thing to fall for their tricks. He would rather use Manaria to expand even further. Alsrod checked with Civic to see if he had summoned them, to which the commander replied that the warriors were expecting. Civic loudly announced that the one whose name was called should immediately present before the count. Orc Sprite and Rayon Mircolia will bear the names of the Red Bear and the White Eagle. They will report directly to Count Naval as commander of the special units. Alsrod stated that he went from the second son of a petty ruler to an earl. However, the current training of his troops is not commensurate with his status. From now on, they will learn to move and behave in a manner befitting their position. A perfect army that will strike terror into the hearts of their enemies. They will show their enemies what they are capable of. Oda Nobunaga noted that the two groups of elite troops are just like Black and Red Koro. He begins to realize why Alsrod's work is linked to his name. Perhaps the ideas and thoughts of their worlds are different, but he and he think alike and have similar, if not identical, experiences. This is why his work is Oda Nobunaga. He believes it was all inevitable. Nevertheless, it is a mystery how a person like him can be a work. It may be impossible for people to understand God's work. One Nobunaga noted that Alsrod should not rely too much on God. Let him keep to himself, or his work will not pay off. The day of the meeting came. The people stood at the gate, and one boy asked if Alsrod was deliberately delayed. Laviella clarified that he wanted to pretend that their presence was superior. Alsrod agreed, though he has a different goal in mind. He wants him to get a good look at his army. She'll understand why he'll deliberately play the role of the delayed. An hour passed. One Nobunaga remarked that it was perfect, should make an impression. Mamushi come to meet Dusan, a mere soldier, then surprised him by meeting him in formal clothes, but thinks it would be a mistake to demonstrate his strength first. They came into Manaria's district. The soldiers of Manaria noted that they were naval warriors, an organized unit. Alsrod noted that not everyone had done a good job, and then turned to Rayon. Rayon turned to the White Eagles. And those were not late, and so delayed their arrival. The culprit to step forward. Of course it's not true. It's all just a publicity stunt. A young man came out and started something. Then he got punched in the face by Rayon. Next time will be unforgivable. If he's late for battle, he'll lose his head. The soldier stated that he understood. Rayon offered his deepest apologies to the Count. Alsrod noted that he could return. Soldiers who report negligence are not afraid of commanders that are harsh on latecomers. Now they will wait for their reaction. This performance should show that there is no problem with their army. Earl of Blantyre. Ailes Galtus stated that he was waiting for Earl Naval. Alsrod apologized for being late. One Nobunaga noted that means he is the so-called Ailes Galtus. The atmosphere around him is similar to that of Mamushi, although this one would be more sympathetic. Ailes motioned for him to take a seat. Didn't hear they were late, so they took their time to observe, and he has good warriors. Alsrod noted that we are awkward to say that it was a hasty preparation. I was not prepared for such an encounter. Ailes replied that if they are not fully trained yet, it is even strange. The defeat at Fort Reward seems to have been no accident. He's a war genius, and he'd rather not fight him face to face. Alsrod noted that victory depended on the luck of the day, and if he was unlucky, he would be lying under the cold ground by now. He didn't really feel like fighting Manaria. Ailes noted that if he were mediocre, he would have no problem conquering. Frankly, if he were, he'd be under that very earth right now. Alsrod clarified, even if he had to hire an assassin. The Count of Manaria that we preferred to fight fair, but new cases he wants to join forces. He doesn't have a wife yet. Alsrod pointed out that he didn't yet. After all, the war had been a long time coming. Ailes specified what he would say if the Earl offered him his daughter. Alsrod knew that if all went well, he would be asked about it. If he and Laviella were commoners, he would not have caused her such grief. Laviala turned to his MRA and asked him to accept the offer. He needs a wife, and cooperation between families is also important. Alsrod asked Count Blantyre's permission to clarify something. He is in a position where he cannot miss the chance to have a child, so he will have a concubine if possible. Ailes noted that with an heir, a civil war was less likely, so it would be possible to protect his territory. Alsrod added that if it was okay with him, he would like to take him up on his offer. Count Mineria offered to ask her personally. A girl entered the office and remarked that it was a pleasure to meet him. She is Serafina Galtus, daughter of Ailes Galtus, and he's her so-called husband. Alsrod was honored to meet her. She's the one who feels honored. Her dream is to marry a hero, because then her life would be a lot more interesting. But it's okay if he doesn't believe her. When she heard about his triumph in the battle for the fortress near the borders of their territories, she knew she had to marry him. She would like to see the world outside of Mineria. She really hopes he will live up to her expectations. It would be only natural for him to do so if he becomes her husband. Serafima confirmed this. Otherwise, he should start running away, or she would see to his death. Alsrod noted that she might end up regretting it. Just how many heroes exist in this world? Serafima chuckled and added that he was no doubt very interesting. Her job, by the way, is also quite strange. It's called Saint. She was told that she increases the luck of those around her by 30%, so she'll start to influence him too. She asked what his job was. She had already named hers, so she wanted to know his as well. Alsrod thought that if he called her Oda Nobunaga, she might not understand. Alsrod stated that she already knew hers. It was Hero. Serafima stated to her father that she would travel with Alsrod to Naval. She thanked him for bringing her up until now. Count Mireria noted that as Count Naval can see, despite her attitude, she is very intelligent. That non-parental greed makes him think she is a good fit for him. Alsrod stated that he would do his best to make the girl happy. Serafima's father is so happy that he was able to find her a good match. He wishes the two of them all the best. Just like that, his meeting with Mineria ended without a hitch. The two powers pledged a non-aggression pact with each other and moved to areas where their interests did not conflict. This also facilitated trade. Merchants with permission could lease their horses even in foreign territory. They were given protection by giving them priority in accommodation at the inns along the roads. A month later, Count Naval and the daughter of the Count of Mineria held a grand wedding ceremony at a temple in Mineria territory. Alsrod remarked that the girl was so beautiful, as befitted an earl's daughter. Serafima declared that the real reason for this was that it was all for him. May he make her the happiest woman in the land. The power of a saint resonates with the one who loves her. Alsrod agreed to this. She would be his good luck charm. She doesn't want to be overly flattering, but she loves him, her hubby. Serafima said that such a castle does not fit her husband's status. A castle this size can't hold 1,000 people, and the compatibility is too small. This is not only because of the family's status, but also because of the scale of the opponents they will face. Alsrod noted that she had come to that conclusion just by looking at the layout of the castle. She was very smart indeed. He clarified with her that if they had to move, what kind of place she would choose. Serafima stated that she would recommend a town overlooking the Moust River. It's convenient as a center of trade, and depending on the castle construction, you could turn the back of the castle towards the river instead of just having a moat. Alsrod stated that he would definitely consider marrying her, even if she was the daughter of a mere human. Serafima noted that meant her husband had also thought about the place, to which he agreed. It is indeed a trading city where Count Naval first defeated the Kinars army. He was instructed to personally explore the city. Fornelia is landlocked, so the fastest way to reach the ocean is from Moust, where a large river runs through. Alsrod noted that by the time he could call himself Count of Fornelia, he would consider turning this into a full-scale operation. For starters, he intends to destroy the rebel force in the prefecture. Serafima replied that was right, because a hero could truly demonstrate his power in war. The servants asked Alsrod for a word. They had a lot of paperwork to do. Alsrod said he would take care of it right away and asked if someone could show his wife the castle. He saw Lavielle and the girl said that she didn't mind showing her the castle. She would act according to their social status. Alsrod thought about her saying this to please him, but still he felt there were some fundamental problems here. Seraphima noted that this girl was her hubby's half-elf lover. She had heard that she was an excellent student and had quite a trim body. She had made quite a name for herself as someone who was as brave as her husband, and she had heard that she had killed quite a few enemies with her bow. Laviala bowed and said she was honored by the Countess's words. Alsrod thought that it was Seraphima who seemed to be more hostile than Laviella. Seraphima said that even so, comparing their breasts, she won because she was twice as big as Laviella. Laviella replied that, with all due respect, it was because she was trying to be an archer, and big breasts were a hindrance. Seraphima's husband should certainly know about it, for then what was the real reason? Alsrod asked her not to ask him about it. Seraphima noted that they were not alone here, so they should not embarrass their loved ones. After all, her hubby is an earl. Alsrod didn't realize that this exchange was enough to close the gap with the vassals. Seraphima is the daughter of their enemy, Mineria, and many of them lost family members in the war against Naval. There would always be those who would view him with suspicion as someone they considered an enemy. Still, she lightened the mood easily with a simple joke. Perhaps his wife was even more talented than he had originally thought. Just from Laviala's point of view, it looked like she was being sacrificed for her own good. Seraphina ordered the girl to stop addressing her in such a harsh manner and just call her by her first name. She has been helping her husband since ages, and she is well aware of that. She will also be in her care. Alsrod pointed out that he'd better be careful not to screw up, or he'd end up on the wrong side of the bed. Oda Nobunaga agreed, since Mamushi's daughter was still his daughter. Althea showed up and said she could show her around. She wanted to talk to Seraphima. Seraphima was very pleased to meet Althea. Then she asked if there was a shrine nearby that would help her conceive a child. If Althea remembered correctly, there was one. Laviala stated that she would go with them as well. Their next destination was the Holy Church that owned the largest temple in Fortelia Prefecture. Paint that church controls the forces of the Fiat Church and another separate force. If they destroyed them, the unification of Fordnelia would be a matter of time. He sent a letter to the knights with food of the church, asking them to come welcome him as the new Earl of Naval. But he doesn't think they'll recognize him so easily. Surely they don't think that by doing so, the Holy Church, and they will have to give up their interests in favor of his. Meanwhile, the headquarters of the Holy Knights. A message from the Earl of Naval has been announced. Addressing the commanders, he asks them to come to Ankeville Castle to pay their respects. The commander of the Holy Knights orders them to simply ignore. He must be out of his mind if he thinks their holy church will bow to such an upstart. Alsrod, just as he thought, they decided to ignore them. Then they would make them listen to them by force. Naval's army and the Knights of the Holy Church waited for a small battle on a flat plain in the territory of the Great Holy Church. Their army numbered 1,500 men against theirs of 7,000. Alsrod calculated the odds of their defeat to be 1 in 10,000. This battle would also serve as their chance to prove themselves. He called upon Orcs and Rayon to show them the strength of the elite naval guard. They rushed to the attack. Alsrod ordered the Bekor Klav detachment to attack. A soldier of the Holy Knights stated that it was as if a few pathetic cereals were becoming them. Here, Orcs well all on them. One Holy Knight stated that he will deal with him. If he's against their master, he doesn't stand a chance. Such self-confidence will be his undoing. However, Orcs cut this soldier in half and shouted for the Red Bear to attack. The Holy Knights were terrified as they managed to outmaneuver them. They think they are bloody cowards. Why don't they fight them with a magnifying glass to the forehead? The Holy Knights talked about retreating and regrouping, but not all supported the idea. At thrust, they should go straight at their main forces. One of the Holy Knights declared that he would be shot down then and ordered his squad to follow him. Naval's archers reached the fleeing men, as the knights are quite fast. Just then, Captain Rayon appeared and he pierced the fleeing knight. An arrow capable of penetrating the armor of a huge millipede, and he was sorry to waste one. One of the soldiers offered to pick it up later. The people were horrified, not understanding why the knights wanted to burn them into the village. The knights replied that it was to keep it out of enemy hands. This village is too close to the Great Holy Church, and if this place is taken, they will not be able to protect the Great Holy Church. The villager didn't understand how they could. The knights would defend this village, but to think they wouldn't burn it to the ground. The knight wanted to kill the villager, saying that we have no right to cross the knights of the Holy Church. He was so successfully repulsed. Alsrod noted that it looked like they had made it in time and asked the man if he was from the village. The man confirmed that he was the headman and thanked him for the rescue. Alsrod introduced himself and noted that he would like to set up camp here. Alsrod noted that their efforts made the battle go smoothly, and he expects the same zeal from Toho in future battles. Orcs live that they do not vow to bring him victory. Rayon added that they will not continue to fight bravely so as not to blacken the name of the White Eagles. Although there is something Orcs doesn't quite understand. Rayon noted that he was being disrespectful. However, Alsrod didn't mind. Orcs didn't understand what their treasurer, Fenalia, was doing here. Fenalia replied that it was because wherever there is war, there will always be merchants, supply of provisions and women work traders, and because to provide all these things. Suddenly a soldier appeared and apologized, saying he had urgent news. They received news of the whereabouts of the remaining troops of the Knight and the Holy Church. Orcs stated that he would crush them right where they stood. As it turned out, they'd taken shelter inside Fordnelia's Holy Church. Alsrod figured they would, so they won't make another offensive. Laviala shared, as much as she would like to live their always evil life, if they launch a full-scale attack and cause damage to the Great Holy Church, it would end up damaging their reputation. Orcs was angry. They assure themselves they are defenders and end up holding the church hostage. One Nobunaga pointed out that they had brains after all. The supreme ruler would just burn everyone like he did the monks on Hiei. Perhaps we are too early to follow the path of evil. He wondered what Alsrod would do. Alsrod asked him not to worry. He wasn't going to get his hands dirty just yet. Rayon checked with her count to see if there would be any instructions. The White Eagle squad is ready to move out at any moment. Alsrod stated that there was no rush. They would send them offers to surrender first. They must not give the impression that they are people who would not hesitate to attack the Great Holy Church. After that, he set everyone free. The Holy Knights' declaration that they will not fight to the death for their religion is ultimately just empty words. They would show their true nature if they were cornered. Alsrod asked funnily if he had finished their training, to which the treasurer replied that that was what he had come for. He calls them shadows, but thinks the count should choose a name for them. One Nobunaga replied that he means he uses shinobi too, and suggested he call them Rappa. Alsrod did not immediately understand. Oda Nobunaga pointed out that in his world they called them Rappa. Alsrod told funnily that they would be called Rappa. He would be surprised if a Rappa appeared near him, wouldn't he? But now his first order of business for the Rappa was to investigate the actions of the knights within the Great Holy Church. If it turns out that they are unwilling to negotiate, have each kill at least 2 of them. A few days later, the message was delivered to the Holy Church. The commander of the Holy Knights stated that it was clearly a trap. As soon as they left, the enemy would burn the temple to the ground. Divine retribution will befall them, as if it will fall upon those who defend God. The head priest appeared and told the commander of the knights that he wished to speak to him. He clarified if it was true that they had tried to burn the village, it had not been captured. The commander replied that the Great Holy Church was far more important than some village. They should be proud to have the honor of helping them defend it. This letter is Count Navel's attempt to dissuade them and trick them into leaving the temple. It should have been obvious to the priest. The head priest didn't understand how the commander dared. The commander ordered him to be taken to his room. Fenalia reported, "Here's what the Rappas have reported over the past few days. The knights have no intention of negotiating with them." Alsrod ordered them to get to work. It seemed to the priest that someone had come to help them. A corpse was seen in the corridor. The priest stated that it was not safe here and they needed to hurry. Fenalia reported that they had killed the commander and the 7 knights under him. There is a little more blood inside the Holy Church than there used to be, but that shouldn't be anything too unforgivable. And most importantly, the priest and a few other priests have come to them seeking protection. The knights have no reason to continue fighting them any longer. The head priest stated that they are truly grateful to them for their rescue from the knights of the church. Moreover, they cannot thank them enough for their patience in refraining from attacking the Great Holy Church until the last. Alsrod noted that as an earl, he had to do at least that. He had always dreamed of seeing Fordnelia at peace. The priest shared that at this point he could say that the entire prefecture would soon be completely under his rule. He would even say that there was nothing stopping him from being called Count of Fordnelia anymore. Alsrod replied that he would think about it and thanked him. He would also like to know the reason why they had summoned him. The head priest said it was a sign and thanks for their rescue. Orcs had a feeling he had seen it somewhere before. It was a weapon worthy of being treated by God. They couldn't think of a better gift for the new Earl of Fordnelia. Aslud clarified whether he could take it from him. If the knights didn't help, the priest was afraid to imagine what they might do with it. So he thought it was better to let the Earl of Fordnelia have it than them without strong priests. Alsrod stated that he would then gladly accept the gift. The spear has much more meaning to him than just some simple souvenir. The true value of this spear lies in the paths it opened. He decided to form a 3-trade force of Red Bear's men. Since the copy is quite heavy, it will give them to men with strong arms who can withstand rigorous training. If forced into a tight formation, they'd be an intimidating force both in this way and in defense. One Nobunaga knew he had the mindset of a lord. It was so intriguing. He decided to use Nagayari's spear tactics. He then decided to move his headquarters from Naval to Maust, which are near the Grand River. To maintain the quality of their troops as they grew, they needed to increase their war funds more than ever. And so they arrived there today. Laviala announced cheerfully that here was the port of Maust. The Count was apologized for the wait. The parties involved in the construction project were gathered for him as he had requested. Alsrod wants the river to surround the castle so it looks like it's floating. At the same time, there should be a direct waterway between Maust and the castle for direct transportation. Bridges must also be built to connect the areas surrounding the castle. This should be doable according to their treasurer Finalia. The man has hung counts that are similar, then there will be a competent construction project. The question came up as to how long it would take. The man replied that he thought they would have to spend about 3 years. Alsrod's orders were to do it in a year. This project scales to me any of the previous ones, so no wonder people are so nervous. He understands, and he'll be heading up this project personally. The man specified whether he would personally oversee it. Under the influence of the Lord's guidance, any worker's ability to focus and cooperate would increase, and it should speed up the process a bit. Alsrod said he would like to personally observe their excellent work up close. Soon, a lot of people will move there. To become the capital of the prefecture, the population here must increase about 5 times. This shocked the men. Alsrod urged them not to think it was impossible without even trying. He is serious about this place becoming the center of the world, and in order to do so, he has gathered people with the talent and ability to create a world-class castle city. He asked them to lend him their power. First, the construction of Maust Castle came Maust's economic plans. Workers were employed by the profits from the Rakuichi Rakuza system of free markets and open guilds. As workers traveled from all over the prefecture, it also attracted merchants. A positive feedback loop has begun. Alsrod gained the special ability, Patron of the Overlord. His economic sense is sharpened to the level of Oda Nobunaga when ruling cities and making trade deals. This ability is permanent, unless he is in an insane state, alcohol intoxication, etc. Continuing my work suddenly acquired a new unique skill. One Nobunaga asked permission to explain, rather than an assessment of his own abilities. It means that his foresight ability was deemed worthy of the Lord. That's why he gave him this unique skill. Alsrod remarked that wasn't all those unique skills he had been just making up all this time. Oda Nobunaga agreed with that. After all, it is an exceptional job. He's the only one in the world with such a job, so everything happens by trial and error. In other words, he was personally recognized as such by Oda Nobunaga, an estate on the outskirts of Maust. That's when Seraphima appeared and disturbed Alsrod's solitude for a moment. He noted that just standing there from afar realizes that it's not a quick affair. Well, it's quite fun. His wife understands what he means, and he chose the perfect time to build it. The rulers of the other prefectures would not dare to threaten them once it was completed. Alsrod smiled and stated what was expected of her wife. Seraphima replied that she was not as stunning as him. Of all the men she had ever seen, definitely the most incredible. In fact, She had sought him out to inform him of something important concerning them both. Alsrod clarified with the girl if she was pregnant. Well, she nodded that she was. He was glad they had done this. They were very curious as to whether it would be a boy or a girl. Seraphima doesn't know that whoever their child is, she has called on him to raise him into a man capable of ruling the country, because she believes that one day her husband will surely be king. Alsrod lived his teenage years in fear, not knowing which battle would be his last. To create a country where people don't have to live in fear and misery, someone needs to unite the country, a task that can only be accomplished through the work of Oda Nobunaga. Laviella came to the Count's office. She asked him if he had summoned her, and then she added that if it was about the aqueduct, then progress was going well. Alsrod asked her to put it right there for a bit. He wondered when it was that he had gotten taller than her. The girl didn't understand why all of a sudden. He remembered the times that she seemed to be taller than him when he was 12, and he still kept losing sword rides to her. There was even a time when she hit a wooden ball so hard that he peed his pants. Lavipla replied that it was because he had worked so hard that he had made it this far, and so everyone would follow him wherever he went. Alsrod thought that if you look on the bright side, it was because of those who supported him that he was able to get this far. That's why he needs to tell her the truth in person. He said he planned to announce it publicly, but he wanted to tell her first. The girl thanked him. He realized that she would probably congratulate him, but it might hurt or worry her. She encouraged him to speak up. She knows it's hard for him to say some things sometimes, but she asks him to just say it. He announced to Laviella that Seraphima was pregnant with his child. The girl stated that it was wonderful news and she was so happy for him. Now she too wants to tell something she has been keeping secret. She's pregnant with his baby too. Now there is probably not a single person in this territory who is happier than Alsrod. Alsrod stated that as her lord, he orders her to bear a healthy child, and to remain healthy herself so that she could raise it properly. The girl replied that she would do her best to fulfill this order exactly. He said I would be sure to rest if she suddenly felt the slightest fatigue. The girl noted that he was worried sick. It would be very difficult for them without her, so it was worth it to eat constantly without overexerting oneself. During the 2 years of his rule, Alsrod's holdings had grown to the point where he almost owned the entire prefecture. There were only 3 counties left before Fordnelia Prefecture was in full control. It would take some time to finally unify Fordnelia. Until then, it's Naguria clan in the north. Although the 3 counties in the north of Fordnelia formation a buffer zone, so they were still not directly connected. So far, the situation remained peaceful. In the midst of all this, the sender's end of Oldia, the prefecture south of Fordnelia, arrived. It was a messenger from Mr. Brando Naham, Viscount of Olbia Prefecture. He came in hopes of making a military alliance. Alsrod noted that he had heard the name before. He is a great Viscount who rules the 2 districts of Olbia. Mr. Brando Naham, to whom he is only 18 years old, also works to strengthen their country. After becoming the head of his corner, he went to war at the age of 12. He is just like Alsrod, trying to unite Olbia. It sounds harsh, but the envoy clarified that he assumed the Count would attack the north. At that rate, he would quickly reach the capital and would have no trouble reaching the status of regent and chancellor. In preparation for the upcoming events, wouldn't it be a good idea to make an alliance with them to protect their southern borders? Besides, if he could unite the divided royal family as well, his crown would be only a matter of time. Alsrod decided he would take that as a compliment. Of course, he would be honored to support the royal family, but what the envoy said was unthinkable. One Nobunaga pointed out that he was a liar, saying he was going to be king. Such things depend on the situation. In his case, he quietly and steadily accumulated Lord Yoshiteru's power, until he reached the same status as the shogun. In other words, he needs to be delicate. It wouldn't be fun if he did something to arouse someone's envy. He would ask to be given some time to think. Alsrod didn't think he would see the day when his sister would be able to jump so much. He also asked his wife to be careful because she was pregnant. Seraphima replied that she couldn't walk much, so she was still warming up and she wasn't jumping. Alsrod noted that his sister looks healthy. Althea replied that she would no longer be a burden to him. The Count replied that he had never thought of her that way. The girl noted that ours was thanks to him, and she was ready for him to marry her off to someone who could help him. He admitted that he had been thinking about it. The girl asked if it was about Naguria Prefecture. Their population now must be around 30 years old. Alsrod noted that he was thinking of attacking this prefecture soon. Althea pulled out regarding his wife's family in the west. The Count noted that they already have such a good relationship with them. Althea clarified about young Mr. Brando Nam, of the Naam family, Viscount of Olbia Prefecture. Alsrod said that he was just thinking about whether it was worth it to pass her off as him. Althea replied that to know if it was worth it, he'd have to invite him here and see for himself. So why don't you invite him to play airball with the Count's sister? Alsrod agreed to try her idea. Besides, he wants to see for himself if he is worthy to be her husband. Seraphima noted that he may be impassive when it comes to strategy, but soft-spoken when it comes to his sister. Sending in a favorable reply letter, Brando Naham arrived at his place immediately. He introduced himself and said he was looking forward to tonight's airball match. Alsrod could tell from his look how smart he was by the look on his face that he seemed more like a general than a hero. Alsrod asked what job he was given at the ceremony. Brando replied that the temple gave him a job as a thief. He told where his enemy's defenses were vulnerable. Directing his forces to such places, he was able to win several wars. It is said that this job increases judgment by 30% to that of ordinary people, as well as dexterity by 50%. He'd been head of the clan for a long time and had led the warriors before getting the job, so it was more likely that much depended on his intelligence. Alsrod noted that it may seem insulting to call a thief's job unsuitable, but he thinks it's his calling. Brando thanked you and agreed. He then clarified where the Earl's sister was. Alsrod said that he would show the way. The girl was waiting in the courtyard. Althea greeted Mr. Brando, then introduced herself. She noted that it might not seem like it, but she was very good at airball, so he might not hold back. Brando replied that he was looking forward to it. Alsrod noted that Brando had won in advance, anticipating a lot of moves. If you add to that leadership qualities, no petty ruler can surpass him. Brando told the Count that he had never seen such a beautiful girl in all of Oblia. Her legitimacy fascinated her, and he asked her to please marry her off to him. The Count agreed and noted that she would soon be traveling to him. But that doesn't mean he intends to give him troops. He has enough enemies of his own. Besides, his sister has been through a lot more than just 2 people. He wishes her all the best, so Brandor shouldn't do anything to make her cry. Brando gave him his word. Oda Nobunaga shared that this guy looks like Aizai Nagamasa. He ruled enough territory to be considered a daimyo. Another similarity is his sister Oichi was also joyful around him. So he also passed his sister off as a ruler. He thinks it's typical of many rulers. One Nobunaga noted that the situation became quite complicated when he betrayed him, and later he managed to straighten him out. He saved his sister her daughters. However, she remained heartbroken for the rest of her life. Alsrod stated that he would do everything possible to let that happen. He wants his sister to be happy as much as he wants to be king. Oda Nobunaga urged him to just be as careful as possible. A king is not someone who has everything. Rather, you're the one who sacrificed everything to become mine. Alsrod asked his sister if she would like to have tea with him. The sister asked her little brother to watch. She hopes it's not the last time she sees her with him. He knows he should be happy for her because she is getting married. However, for some reason, he just can't handle it. Alsrod believes that this makes him a bad brother. Althea stated that this is not true. If he didn't care for her so much, she would have died a long time ago. Alsrod added that if he didn't have her, he wouldn't have gone to defend the fort like his older brother ordered. They would probably have surrendered to Mineria by now, and he was at most in command from a row of soldiers. Althea thanked her brother for always taking care of her and raising her. He asked her to be as happy as possible and made her promise. After that, they called each other goodnight. However, he abruptly turned around and walked over to his sister and hugged her. He stated that it's okay. She can keep it to herself and cry as much as she wants. He wishes her happiness and let her not worry. She is destined to be the sister of the king. After Althea married, Alsrod devoted his attention to urban development. And after a 6-month construction period, they moved into the new Mausta Castle. Alsrod attracted the attention of ladies and gentlemen, declaring that from this day forward, this place would serve as their center in all spheres, political, economic, and otherwise. Something and may seem unfamiliar, but he's sure they'll love it. And now he's asked permission to tell him his purpose. Right now, the royal family is in complete chaos. For years, it has been divided into factions fighting over one capital. As a subject of the kingdom, it saddens him. That's why he wants everyone to do their best. By serving God, by boxing the king, he will end the chaos in this kingdom. Probably half of them think he's plotting to take power by manipulating the king. Not close, but not quite. Alsrod stated that he wished all present to be united in this effort and declared glory to them all, for the sake of creating his own kingdom. Alsrod shared that previously the remaining 3 northern districts were still with a few intractable rulers. They're going to attack and reduce their forces, then gave the order to speak to Noen Rude. He's a former commander who served under a feckless ruler who chose to serve Alsrod after his death. Noen knows that he warned the district that they were going to kill everyone in the fort. Some nearby residents are seeking refuge internally. Alsrod stated that if they were in the fort, they would be read by their enemies. No one should be left alive. And if they kill everyone in the first battle, then how will the others react? Civic replied that if that happens, more of the majority of the peasant troops will be too scared to fight and will try to desert. Alsrod agreed. If they showed them in the first how much stronger they were, the enemies would quickly surrender. That way they will settle the matter quickly without unnecessary cowpunchery. Besides, he doesn't want to prolong the battle as it will attract more dangerous enemies. Civic clarified about Colt Rentrant of Naguri. Alsrod noted that Civic is as Aster as one would expect given his combat experience. His goal was never to unify the prefecture by eliminating these petty rulers. Rather, his goal was to destroy the Rentrants and invade the other prefecture, Naguri. Everyone was shocked. Rayon noted that, as expected, the Count thinks further than anyone else and he will follow him wherever he goes. He has faith in him. Alsrod stated that he would not let him down and asked who would like to lead this attack. Noen asked the Lord for permission to do so. He had made a fool of himself earlier by failing to understand his intentions, but he would like to tempt him. Alsrod noted that he had said well and urged him to proceed. The soldiers were alerted that Maust's army was approaching. I don't believe it is twice their size. It was Duer's order to place as many archers as possible on the south side, and they realized they'd kill everyone in the fort. It's just a scare tactic, and if they surrender, they will at least stay alive. Then the call came that the enemy was here. Alsrod ordered his troops to destroy them. The fort began to fight back with a catapult. Alsrod ordered the White Eagle squad to take up a defensive formation. The enemy continued to return fire. Finalia checked with Rapp to see if Noen's squad had infiltrated the north side of the fort, which was confirmed to him. They have just arrived on the north-north side following a chain prepared by their Rappa. The Count is quite generous, going to such lengths to show them weaknesses in the enemy's defenses just to pay tribute to a built vassal. Noen called on his boys to show what they could do to take the general's head. Noen got to him and immediately started begging to be spared. The enemies urged each other not to do anything stupid like opening the gates if they wanted Maust's army to come in. But the general is dead. If they stay here like this, they'll all die. The enemies have opened the gate after all. Alsrod announced that unfortunately for them, they would all die here. That's what happens when you refuse to obey them. With Noen killing the enemy general, the battle was over in less than a few hours. Hearing that the entire garrison was the ruler's kind didn't take long to surrender. They already knew about the village the size of their army, so what was the point of bowing down to him now? Apparently, according to Nobunaga's martial words, there were also many rulers who lacked foresight. It also didn't take long for some of the vassals of the departed former rulers to come swear allegiance to him and exemplify that time. The young man stated that his family was originally a branch of the Branchoffs clan. They have held that position for nearly 100 years. Alsrod replied that it must have taken a great deal of determination for them to abandon their lord after so many years of service to him. If such a noble vassal defected to him, it would discourage the rest from resisting. The young man stated that he would also like to provide tangible proof of his desire to serve Alsrod. Alsrod doubted that a petty ruler's vassal could have anything of value. The boy claimed that he brought him the severed heads of Viscount Branches and his heir as proof of his loyalty. Alsrod turned to Oda Nobunaga and said he wanted to finish this guy off. Alsrod asked the fellow if he really thought he needed a vassal who had killed his own lord to do it. The vassal said that he had done it because he was such a fool, and that did not mean he would betray him. Alsrod isn't interested in his loyalty. He wants to say he can't trust him. The neighborhood cut off his head. Alsrod orders a messenger to be sent to offer condolences to the Branches family, to return their heads. Orcs turned to his earl and noted that he looked depressed. Alsrod believes it's because Laviella was always there for him before. Without her by his side, he is not the same. Orcs agreed. It had been a long time since the Count had had a pretty girl with him. He offered to stop by some village to pick one up for him. Rayon stated that the Count of Fordelia and would never do such a thing. Orcs asked Rayon if he didn't get the joke. A captain like him would never violate military regulations. Rayon stated that it didn't look like a joke. Orcs said he also preferred meat to women. Can't wait for this war to be over so he can have a feast. Alsrod noted that there was one ruler left to deal with, and they could return home. He asked him to be patient. They were met with a secure fortress, as one would expect from the northern border of the prefecture. Civic noted that something of the place belonged to the Vuge clan, who were holed up there waiting for reinforcements from Naguri prefecture. At this point, the lord was informed that they were in trouble. Noen's advance party had been ambushed. Noen stated that they were careless and he didn't think they had the courage to come out of building them an ambush. Noen himself was attacked by the ruler of the northern fort, Mysel Vuge. The Vuge ruler fought very well. Noen clarified, why would you fight? If they surrendered, they would not spare them. Mysel noted that how can Danon give up their ancestral lands without a fight? Sur informed that the main force of the enemy is near. Mysel named it after this desperate ambush he barely managed to wound one general. If he's killed here, it will dishonor his family's name. Though he who laughs last laughs. It was a good fight, and he thanked Noen. He'd done his best. It was his duty as ruler. Noen thanked Orcs for saving his life. Orcs said he was sorry they had to kill everyone. He would have made a strong ally. Alsrod noted that Noen was unharmed. Noen thanked his count for sending Orcs to help him, and he said that this battle may have already come to an end. As Noen had expected, the Vuge clan offered to surrender on the condition of amnesty for their soldiers. After giving Alsrod Hans their consent, they left the castle and surrendered. Thus ended the unification of the prefecture of Fordelia. Alsrod asked to be allowed to take a moment to thank everyone for their valiant efforts in this war. Their labor had borne fruit in the form of countless and magnificent achievements. Noen in particular had brought them a flawless first victory that made the rest of the war much easier. Furthermore, as for the treatment of the enemy clan who surrendered, after finding out those who were in favor of the war, they will be executed along with their rulers. If there is anyone to say something to anyone, they can speak up quietly. Orcs noted that some of the opposing forces were quite experienced. He asked for permission for them to join the Red Bears. Alsrod told him to do whatever he wanted. Noen stated that Viscount Mysel Vuge possessed a firm character. If they could forgive him, he would want to use him as a commander under his wing. Orcs stated that he was the one who wanted to take him away. Alsrod noted that it was his own fault for not being specific, so he would have to settle for someone else. He also noted that Noen's request at some point could not have come at a better time. Holai Castle. A mountain fort in the north of the prefecture that was defended by Mysel Vuge. He appoints him to command it. It is there that they will have to fortify their fortress for the upcoming battle with the Rentrant clan of Naguri prefecture. If they underestimated him, they might have interfered in the recent battle. That was why he wanted to place one of his best vassals in the fort on the northern hill. It would be imprudent to send away his guard, White Eagles, Red Bears, or Civic. Civic pointed out that he may be old, but he can still keep up with the young. Alsrod knows this, but his parents are gone, so he wishes he could take care of the elderly. In the meantime, let him rest. He will be useful in the coming battle. As a result, he entrusts Noen with full authority over the 3 northern districts. Noen says he's doing his best to live up to his expectations. Alsrod orders the Viscount of Holai Castle to be brought here after the feast. Mysel calls that for the crime of disobedience. He offers his lord his life. Alsrod stated that to pass it on, he would like to give him a question as to why he started this. You even know he can't beat it. Mysel shared that the family has held this land for generations. A ruler is above his people because he risks his life to protect his land. It would be a disgrace if the ruler of the people immediately ran away without even engaging in battle. Alsrod lived that he liked him and wanted him to be a commander under Noen Rude. Woog thought that those who disobeyed should be killed as a matter of course. Alsrod replied that it depends on the person, and if he finds him useful, he would be better off using him. Oda Nobunaga encouraged him to use everyone he could. He shared that he forgave his subordinate even after his betrayal. He was also willing to forgive the other subordinate, but he is very curious as to why he persists in refusing. Alsrod: I'm interested in his complaint. Seraphima was outraged. She can't believe that her husband is having a gazing contest with the map again. Alsrod shared that he had to. He was facing the biggest battle of all before. Laviella stated that there was nothing I could do about it. I asked him to be patient a little longer. Seraphima shared that it was so lonely. Alsrod noted that both of their bellies are already so big. If possible, he would prefer to deal with Naguri Prefecture before their children were born. Laviella said that even for a man as incomparable as he was, it would be difficult to take over an entire prefecture in a few months. Alsrod agreed and pointed out that even Oda Nobunaga was in no hurry to capture the last neighboring province. Laviella didn't quite understand what Oda Nobunaga had to do with this. It was the title of his work. Alsrod asked her to forget about it and not to worry. Laviella suddenly managed to leave the room. Seraphima stated that she would be happy to help him in any way they could. Well, right now, the baby is the most important thing. He knows it. They're looking out for him. His wife stated that she had something more specific in mind. Suddenly, a girl appeared in the room. Her name is Fleur, and she is Mysel Woog's younger sister. Until 2 years ago, she was living with Rentrent Naguria as a hostage. She thinks she might have something to say about the inner workings, and is grateful that he spared her family. Besides, my older brother will be fighting on the front lines of the next battle. For his sake, she wants to make sure the battle goes well, and to that end she will tell him everything she can. Seraphima noted that she was sent by the Woog family. I would think she would be helpful. Seraphima stated that she was incredibly intelligent and also had a trustworthy demeanor. Alsrod stated that he appreciated her sentiment, then clarified if he could ask her some questions. Naguri Prefecture must be preparing for war, but when is the best time to attack? Fleur replied that when the wheat harvest begins, they will have fewer men to conscript. Alsrod asked her why she thought they had not attacked them yet. Fleur replied that there were several reasons for this. First, they only care about protecting their lands, and second, they want to avoid conflict with Fordnaria. Laviella asked if I would rather do that than risk damage to my lands. Alsrod replied it would take 3 or 4 days to reach the battlefield. Many peasant soldiers don't like that. Besides, there's no point in traveling all that way to them if there's no decent booty. Laviella hadn't thought of that. That's another reason he's been training soldier yearlings to fight at any moment. Fleur stated that last one. It could be a way to trap him. The lands of the Naguri rulers are in the middle of nowhere. If the invasion gets this far, the enemy could catch them off guard and isolate them, making it difficult to retreat. Then too, forces can be destroyed, which is why their plan is to wage a defensive war. The ability to understand the affairs and tactics of their enemies in such detail. Alsrod realized that Fleera wasn't just a princess in a birdcage. Seraphima reminded the darling that they were in her room. He apologized, not paying attention at all. The girl didn't mean it. She thought Miss Fleur's room would be more suitable for their discussion. He realized they wanted her to be his concubine. Alsrod noted that if Miss Fleur had no objection, he would like to hear more of her views. Alsrod is already in the room asking the girl if her brother knows about it. Before the locks parted, he told her he didn't mind if she became part of the Count's family. His wife also ordered that she spend the night with him. Alsrod then offered not to disappoint his wife. Alsrod promised the girl that her family would be safe as long as she obeyed him. Fleur thanked him and asked him to treat her family well. He thinks she should put on a more cheerful face, because no one will hold a grudge against her if she smiles. The girl thanked him. It had been years since she had last been spoken to so warmly. Alsrod, note that you are so she looks cuter when she smiles. There are not many counts in the kingdom who control more than 1 or 2 prefectures. In other words, he had overcome a huge step of complete conquest, and preparations for that had already been made. Alsrod stated that their next goal was to invade Naguri Prefecture. No one noted that they had brought with them surprisingly so few soldiers. He thought he would arrive with his entire army. Alsrod said it's just a bridgehead, the rest will come later. If they delayed, reinforcements would come to Naguri. Mysel thanked the count for the favor shown to his sister. Alsrod said he would take care of her and make her happy. He asked him to do his best to forget Naguri Prefecture for her sake. Alsrod and the others headed towards the Sour Fort, the very heart of Naguri. It was once again an abandoned fort. Oda Nobunaga noted that it was disappointing and boring. Alsrod noted that they were all small fortresses designed to defend against invasion by the petty northern rulers of Fordaria. Oda Nobunaga clarified if it bothered him that they hadn't even repaired or rebuilt. Alsrod realized that this could only mean that they had no intention of organizing defenses against them outside of their own territory. Passing this point, they would reach the plains north of Naguri. Then they can move straight as the main citadel, Castle Molkar. There are many forts waiting along the way. They also appear to be undergoing major renovations. That means the enemy intends to isolate and destroy here at Fort Saurus. If they flank them from behind this fort, they'll get pinched. That's why they've put so many soldiers in the rear guard. So will not be able to handle any flanking force. But then, how will the advance party advance? They could attack them on their way through this valley. Alsrod asked not to worry. He had already found several secret passages leading from this fort to the fortress. It may seem like these forts are protected by a mountain range, but in fact it can be bypassed. So if the forts are only listened to as blockades on the road, they just need to destroy them beforehand. Then they will meet their Aryarad, and once they reach the plain, their victory will be decided. Mysel, see if there's enough forward troops to take them. Orcs can't believe he's going to pull this off. Alsrod has pointed out that they're all very capable. Plus, he's going with the takedown, so he suggests they do whatever it takes to win. He's not afraid of anything, because he'll have them by his side. If they don't show the Gesopten what they are capable of, what kind of men are they after that? The White Eagles will protect him at the cost of their own lives, even at the cost of their own lives. The special ability of the Lord's leadership has been given a new level. Reliable allies have doubled. In addition, their defensive and offensive capabilities have increased by 30%. It's not like they can't lose with Oda Nobunaga on their side. This was his 15th head. The count was notified that the fort had fallen. They headed for the next ones. One of the soldiers told them they were under attack and ordered them to contact the others immediately. Suddenly, there was a fire, and the order came to carry it into the water to put it out. The soldiers informed the captain that they had come to put out the fire. He called them idiots for not throwing the gate. At that moment, Alsrod's army stormed the gate. Mysel asked the Lord to leave it to him. The count ordered him to go and fight with all determination. The soldiers decided they were outnumbered and could win if they released him, that monster. Not the one the Colt Rentrant had prepared to kill Count Fordnelia. The soldier unleashed the monster at home. This guy killed all the gladiators, he's so strong. In fact, he single-handedly killed 30 gladiators in one night. He's the strongest warrior a man can have. Alsrod said that once they captured this fort, they could break through the mountain. He asked to be given this victory. Rayon decided to go around this fort from the rear to make sure the enemy doesn't escape. Alsrod asked to leave at least one alive. The Rentrants don't know they've attacked the forts yet. Do not take advantage of this and complete their preparations for an offensive. The neighborhood calls for what will be accomplished. Also asked Mr. Woods to take care of the schedule. Mysel stated that he will protect it with his own valuable life. Satan ran to the monster, shouting that it was bad and he had to let it out or it would die. The guy opened the cage and said, "Monster, get out of there! Fordnelia's army is here." The monster came out and noted that there was someone strong outside. The soldier confirmed this and said to protect them. Alsrod and Mysel. Woog declared to the count that he would take care of him. However, his attack failed, and the monster slammed him against the wall in response. Alsrod ran away with Mysel away from the monster. Woog asked not to worry since he wears reinforced armor. Alsrod had never heard of a mercenary who was so big and fast at the same time. The monster threw a boulder at them, but the Count repelled the attack. Alone, Nobunaga didn't realize what kind of monster it was. Alsrod asked Myselch to cover him enough not to die. He then threw himself right at the monster and asked who he himself would be. The monster stated that he was told that he didn't need his name. This is when the Count realized that he is someone so strong and is a slave. The monster wanted to attack, but Mysel had the Count's back. Alsrod recalled that he said to cover him enough here so he wouldn't die. Woog replied that that was nonsense. If he couldn't protect to that extent, how would the captain's face look afterward? Alsrod asked him for this restorative potion so he could heal himself a little. Mysel stated that he couldn't let him die because of him. Alsrod noted what he would tell his sister if he died here. Had he forgotten about his sister at all? The monster was angry that he was stopped by such weaklings, damn ants. The enemy soldiers asked the monster what he was doing. He should kill them. Just let him kill them finally. Alsrod turned to the monster and stated that he wouldn't mind if he joined his army. He could guarantee his freedom. The enemy soldier was reminded that they are his allies. Let him not listen to him, but kill him. The monster snapped the head off one of them and ordered it to slam shut. Alsrod clarified if he wanted to come to his side. What was his answer? Monster stated that he would kill anyone who told him so. He doesn't care if he's a sudden or an enemy. He just wants to kill anyone stronger than him, that's all. Oda Nobunaga noted that he could smell Yasuke's scent coming from him, probably mistaken for his work. The monster tried to make another attack but was shot in the eye. Alsrod clarified to the monster, was it really going to kill him here? Don't let him be stupid. Alsrod used the special ability Pride of Lord. When defending someone's speed, the attack is doubled. After that, he made a very strong attack on the monster. Ryan noted that the monster was still on its feet. The monster remembered being told that it didn't need a name. On the contrary, what kind of slave-eat demon freak show? He then said he would make him a gladiator, and when he defeated the strongest, he would be given a nickname. Alsrod stated to Oda Nobunaga that he would borrow the name of the man he spoke to. Alsrod told the monster that he would recognize him, but if he remained nameless, he could not be loyal to future generations. So he will give him a name. From now on, his name is Yasuke. Yasuke replied that he liked it, and he and Alsrod lunged at each other in battle. Alsrod killed the monster named Yasuke. Alsrod and the others won a deadly battle with Yasuke in the last fort. They then reunited with the Arter Guard led by Sivik and began a massive attack. On the other hand, the Rentant army would be strong against the long spears on the high ground. If they tried to break through, they would only reach a dead end where the arrows had already finished their work. The enemy was taken by surprise, and because of the report that it was an extra small part of Alsrod's troops. The man claimed he'd been duped. The report from the fort was nonsense. A soldier came and told the Lord of the breaking news. Molkar's castle, their capital, is under attack. The man didn't understand who the capital was under attack by. Weren't they fighting Fordnelia's army now? The soldier said it was the ruler of the Northeast, Ward Rentrant. The man realized it was a branch of his family, as they had worked together from the beginning. Eotha Colt Rentrant's clan miraculously escaped death. Defeat in his own land led to a sharp decline in the number of his followers. Colt, his clan, and senior vassals were too proud to surrender, so most of them committed suicide. Only a few months had passed since Alsrod had unified Fordnelia Prefecture, when now he had already conquered Naguri Prefecture and became the ruler of the two prefectures. Alsrod was talking to Sivik. Sivik noted that meant there was such a man. If they had met earlier, they might have become good buddies. But I never think his old bones will live to see the end of the Rentrants. Alsrod said that he should not be surprised, for he knew that as long as the Count was alive, he was going to establish his kingdom. Fenelia pointed out to the Lord that such work cannot be completed in one night. Alsrod ordered us not to tell anyone. Fortunately, most of Naguri's financial officials survived. He wants the treasurer to work with them. Now they can mobilize over 10,000 soldiers. Alsrod has been notified that Seraphima's head maid has something to tell him. The maid stated that he has wives of a kind. They will have a child. When Alsrod appeared in the room, he saw Seraphima with a baby in her arms. The girl stated that she had done it and they had a boy. Alsrod stated that he would always protect him, he promises. He stated that his wife also pastored well. It must have been very painful nature in court because what all red hands. He thanked her profusely. Now he didn't have to worry about the heir anymore. Serafima stated that they still didn't know if he could handle the role. This was typical Serafina, as realistic as ever. Alsrod thought that mothers always wanted their child to be the heir. The girl stated that, first of all, she wants to be the wife of a hero. In addition, she does not want their country to fall apart because of the wrong choice of an heir. Aslarod wished his son good luck and said that he would follow in his footsteps. Serafina pointed out that he doesn't understand anything yet. Oda Nobunaga pointed out that he couldn't even open his malka in front of his own son. Alsrod mentally asked him to shut up and not talk to him out of the blue. One Nobunaga noted that you should enjoy it while you can. While still adorable and not too saucy, he turns out he still hasn't picked my name yet. Oda suggested the name Otori. Alsrod grinned and said it was too weird. Nobunaga explained that Otori is a mythical male bird that appears when a saint enters the world. It can also be translated as Son of Heaven. Isn't that a fitting name for his son? Serafina asked her husband to do the honor of naming their son. Alsrod thought that just Otori would sound too strange and suggested the name Otoric. It was originally the name of a bird, which can also be translated as Son of the Sky. Serafima said it was a wonderful name, and now their son is called Otoric. One day his father will have so much land that he will not be able to recognize the origin of the name Navel. It could be 10 or 20 years from now, but someday his power will be his. Laviella said that the baby's name is very good, as expected from the Count. Alsrod noted that the girl should also give birth soon. Fleur confirmed this, noting that the girl needs to rest and she will take care of her work. Alsrod heard it would be about 2 months. Laviella confirmed it. Half-elf babies stay in the womb longer than humans. She's looking forward to the birth of their child. 2 months later, she had a breech birth. The maid said she would do anything to save Laviella's life. Alsrod lives that she must save them both. It is an absolute order. Alsrod came to pray in church and his wife joined him. He was surprised. He hadn't heard she was coming. Serafima stated that the gods gave her a job as a saint. Doesn't it make sense for her to be here? She wants to be a guardian angel and a goddess for her sweetheart, and Laviella is also dear to her. Alsrod agreed. It was different then, and when they were with his mom. Now she was his wife. The maid informed him that he had a baby girl, to which he responded by asking anxiously what was wrong with Laviella. The maid stated that she was fine, and she had made it. Alsrod ran into Laviella's room and grabbed her hand and asked if she was okay. Laviella stated that she was relieved when she saw his face. She remembered the words he had said to her before. She was in a lot of pain. And just as she was about to give up, you heard a voice. It was saying that even if she left him, he would bring her back. That's why she came back. Before Fleur became Alsrod's concubine, she told her brother she was going to Castle Moust, asked him not to worry because he'd look after his sisters. He apologized to her for always having to do all the work for him. Fleur pointed out that he had been a hostage until he came of age, and it was because of that she had been so successful in management. She asked him to remember that her job is to support him, and it's certainly not a burden. He pointed out that she is the Count's wife, and he wants her to support him. Now it's her turn to be happy. Fleur wondered if she could be happy. When he was a hostage, she only kept smiling because she thought of him to their subjects. She's not sure if she'll be able to smile again if he dies. Mysel asked her not to keep him before his time. He would surely bring back the good name of the Woog family victoriously in the next battle. Fleur asked him to be sure to come back, or she would never be able to smile back at the Count. After the conquest of Naguri, their army had won. It was the Count's triumphant return. Alsrod noted that they were lucky to see Fleur smile again. If they had died, they would never have seen her. Mysel asked the Count not to tease him. One Nobunaga clarified means the summer that he finally found him too, he is going to further do. Alsrod stated that it is obvious, and he is going to use it as an initiative to advance to the capital. The young man would like to thank the Count for accepting him. However, he came here because he heard that he wants to offer him his support. And to be honest, he wonders if it's true. The guy's name is Hassa. He is the abandoned son of a former king, and has no titles because of the current king Paphos VI. Alsrod will use it for his own purpose. Alsrod stated that it is not surprising that His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, and with some suspicious doubts. The Count is concerned about the fact that the kingdom of Turval is in chaos, and he has been working hard to put an end to that chaos as soon as possible. Hassa was surprised that he had just called him Crown Prince. He reminded him that he knew he no longer held that title. Alsrod had been notified of the unfair treatment he had received from the current king, Paphos VI. He could have easily gotten the title of Duke or the position of Vice King, but along with that, he stripped him of his titles and tried to kill him. But now His Highness needs a sword and protection. Alsrod offers him both. To restore their kingdom, he asks His Highness to take the throne of their kingdom. He, Alsrod Naval, is willing to give his life for this future and serve His Highness. No doubt this prince also dreamed of becoming king. It was very easy to rekindle this fire. Hassa stated that he understood, and he would become king and bring their kingdom back to its former glory. Alsrod suggested spreading the rumor that the crown prince had returned. Hassa didn't understand what the count meant. Alsrod pointed out that they would never be able to gather a large lord under His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. If many lords from different territories came to pay their respects to him, everyone would be able to see how great the authority of His Royal Highness was. To begin with, he suggested writing to each lord asking them to come to Moust Castle to pay their respects. Serafina said she knew exactly what her sweetheart was up to. But she also asks to put herself in her father's shoes. He will tarry Castle Moust to witness the reading to the prince. People may see in it his bowing before him. Alsrod thinks it would be insufficient to just leave it at that. However, his overall impression of it will vary depending on whether or not an influential person in the region like him visits or not. He needs to compose his arrival to the castle at all costs. Serafina has stated that he can have a magnificent gift presented to him. Otherwise, he'll just make up an excuse and say he's sick so he can't come. 5 months later. Alsrod is visited by his sister's husband. The Count had heard that his sister had given birth to a child and he congratulated them. The groom accepted the congratulations. Alsrod asked him to give his sister his best wishes. At the same moment, his wife's dad showed up. Alsrod would think something had come. Ailes had started something about the beginning of the Crown Prince's reign, and he wouldn't miss it for anything. Alsrod clarified that the plant had come all this way, and he wouldn't want to see his grandsons. Ailes lived that he also wanted to see his daughter Serafina. Hassa stated that those gathered here today sincerely care about the status of their kingdom. Under the reign of King Paphos VI, the kingdom has been a mess all these years, and that is a fact. He is the crown prince and hereby declares his becoming the next king. Hassa turned to Ilas Galtis. As a reward for his unwavering loyalty thus far as crown prince, he grants him the title of Marquis. He also appoints him as the ruler of the southern part of Turval's territories, and he must defeat the rebels. Ailes thanked the prince for this extremely noble gift. It was a great gift for him. He was given a higher rank than Alsrod. It was also for more justification to wage his wars for the lands. Ailes said that he didn't expect to deal with them so quickly, since he'd managed to defeat the Rentrants. Alsrod thought it was a good bet, even though there were casualties. Alsrod noted that it was a winning bet. Given the military power of the Rentrants, it would take at least 5 years. But he used war as a weapon to quickly dispatch them in the blink of an eye. He is a true genius of war. Alsrod replied that he acted decisively, believing the gods were on his side. And besides, if you are a hero capable of uniting a country, you should have divine protection from the beginning. Ailes stated that the thought of uniting the country may not be as preposterous as it seems. He merely asks him not to touch his son's land. He loves his other children as much as he loves Serafina. Alsrod stated that he is fired to continue to expand his influence. The Count won't interfere, and he wouldn't treat his wife's father so coldly. Ailes knows that. Hassa's announcement that the Crown Prince seemed to have caused quite a stir in the capital. The king had ordered the titles to be stripped from those idiots he had in their territories. It was a royal order. Fleur noted that the royal line divided in 2. Even a royal decree is pretty meaningless. Alsrod noted that this had happened throughout the Centennial Rebellion. Rulers who were at odds with the king changed the situation by holding opposition. So the king's authority has fallen even further, and as they say, you reap what you sow. Fleur noted that especially the temples, which have always ruled the lands with their own little stability of the royal family, are not sure about coming to his side. Alsrod noted that the girl was a great help in solving the land issues of the temples. He was grateful to her for that. Fleur was glad that she was useful to her master. Alsrod noted that enough of these formalities, and now she was also one of his wives. Let her address him as her husband or as she would like. The girl was embarrassed and thanked him. She also remembered that one of Prince Hassa's vassals was quite capable. This woman is a dwarf, not a man. I believe her name is Kalara Halara. Alsrod is to meet her if possible. Kalara arrived at the Earl's behest. She introduced herself by her full name, a knight in Prince Hassa's royal guard. She comes from the warrior family where she was raised with the prince. Alsrod had heard that she performed royal ceremonies in ancient traditional ways, even when the prince lived with a wanderer. He decided to ask her more about these traditions. Kalara said that for starters, she would like to mention the political ceremony at the beginning of the year. The regent, or the king himself, gives the word of honor, and according to tradition, balls are presented to the king in order of rank. The king repays the favor by presenting a more valuable sword. However, a sword from the king means recognizing his lordship's right to rule the country, basically following in the footsteps of the king. Alsrod said enough was enough, and he understood. What a clever woman, after all. He wants to hire her as one of his servants. He has never had one like her before. Alsrod asked the girl if possible if she would like to serve him. He comes from a simple family and is unfamiliar with tradition, which could embarrass the prince. Kalara stated that if it was okay with her, she would serve him. Oda Nobunaga stated that he didn't like this woman and that she reeked of Akechi Mitsuhide. He was as well educated and intelligent as this woman, but ended up betraying him. So she reminds him of someone who betrayed her. Oda Nobunaga noted that not only betrayed but killed in Honnoji. Of course, at the time, he was much her senior. He asked the count to be careful. Any master of ancient traditions is a conservative, and when faced with revolutionaries like him, they simply cannot accept it. Oda Nobunaga warned him. Alsrod said he was giving the girl a portion of his lands. And since she will now serve him, hasn't the crown prince developed some strange ideas about her serving him? If they are romantically involved, he will stay away from her. Kalara noted that from generation to generation it had been passed down here by the royal family's linen that it was forbidden to have children under the races. Alsrod apologized to the girl for such an absurd question. He stated that he would count on her. The prince once said they were short-staffed, so she was called to the royal guard. For a dwarf to serve in the king's court was absurd in itself. Alsrod shook the girl's hand. Kalara noted that she had not shaken hands with a man in years. The girl said she was honored to serve him and asked him to take care of her. Subsequently free from politics, he learned from Kalapa the various royal etiquettes and traditions. His invasion plans also did not budge. After almost a year, he captured Ikuto to pave the way for the royal capital, and eventually became the ruler of the 3 prefectures. Laviala that it was time for her to return to the battlefield. Alsrod waited for her to say it. The girl was dragged away if he had plans for her. The count had heard that a bunch of rulers in Olbia were trying to unite against Brando. He wants to make sure he can strengthen the south. He also wants to try and use Kalara as a commander in the next war. Laviala hasn't been on the battlefield for a long time, but her form is still as good. The girl stated that she never once neglected to practice archery when she had time. Alsrod was leading a charge of 3,500 warriors south, but not to join Brando. Instead, he was going to fight an alliance of rebellious rulers in northwest Olbia to keep him from being captured. Alsrod has told Kalara that he has 300 soldiers at her disposal. Let her show what she can do. He told Laviella to fight as she wished, which pleased the girl, and she said that he could rely on her. The soldiers of the enemy were thinking that isn't it strange that they can't find if yes, the Count's army? It makes up a large population, but they haven't seen the flag, and yet there's still no sign of it. The commander was shot in the head with an arrow. Laviella stated that she was still in shape and could be useful. Alsrod praised the girl for her excellent work. She had killed one of the enemy commanders. The Count noticed that it had only been an hour, and Kalara had already returned so quickly. The girls stated that they had killed 3 enemy commanders. Alsrod remarked that it was a good job in such a short time. He believes that I worked in this and could have. Kalara claimed she had no such special abilities. The enemy just didn't seem to be coded or have a clear plan. Couldn't lure them in, then pinched them and killed them. She just used the best tactics based on military strategy writings, both past and present. The Count noted that this was no easy feat to accomplish with 300 people not serving you. He still wondered what her job was. Kalara stated that it is actually a very specific job, and many do not believe her. Alsrod apologized for not questioning it so she could tell him. The girl said it was Akechi Mitsuhide. Oda Nobunaga noted that he had told him before that he was the traitor who killed him. This woman could also be the one who killed him. After all, it was her job. The Count noted that it makes things quite interesting if he can use her by letting her betray him, so it would be better than his. Alsrod asked the girl if she had ever heard Akechi's voice. Kalara was surprised and replied that she had not, but that work could speak. The Count laughed and remarked that it was quite ridiculous. Oda Nobunaga stated that he believed only a man of his level could realize himself as a work. In the end, they dealt a huge blow to the enemy ruler and returned victorious to Maust Castle. Alsrod noted that it is still a job that is more exciting to talk to. 2 heads are better than 1. They will soon reach the capital. Oda Nobunaga claimed the throne as his own. The battle went smoothly for them thanks to Prince Kalara's knight. He asked to accept his thanks. Hasa shared that this woman is a total brain. He has always heard that dwarf and hardworking, but she is then nauseating that it is a bit stifling. I disagree with him. It's rather breathtaking. With a chivalrous physique, she has a lovely figure she's a pleasure to look at. Hasa is so enchanted by her that he officially hands her over to him as his vassal. The Count was most grateful. He thought the prince was a visionary, but thanks to this, he got his hands on a good commander. Alsrod shared with Kalara that the next target was the prefecture of Siala. There are a couple of strong rulers in it that he would like to change for himself. Kalara realized he was talking about the Nestonia clan that owned the port. That was right. They have a powerful fleet. If they cooperate with the neighboring clans, they can provide them with up to 200 ships. The sea is an important part of life for them, and their culture and values are different from the land dwellers. He wants the girl to take advantage of this and convince them with her hospitality. There is no one in this country who is so knowledgeable about the traditions of the culture except her. Thanks to her work, perhaps even more cultured than anyone in the capital. Alsrod doubted Nestonia would stand a chance against them if they showed them they had better cultural standards. Kalara understood him. She would prepare something extraordinary, as if it were for the king himself. The Count has no doubt she'll do well. Would she please come to him for a moment? After which he kissed her unexpectedly. Kalara noted that the southern gentleman had peculiar interests. The boy stated that not at all. He was just in love with her. He urged her to serve him, to dedicate her to him, and he would make sure her name would go down in history for 1,000 years. Alsrod noted that they had come all this way, and he thanked them. It was the ruler of Siala Prefecture, Soltis Nestonia. He stated that he was honored to be invited by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. The Count admitted that he is not one to beat around the bush, so he will be frank. Does the prefecture ruler think they invited him for a purpose? Soltis replied that no, he doesn't think so. Alsrod noted that he had nothing to worry about. He was now a loyal servant of His Highness. If he took such a step, he would lose the trust of the other vassals. Soltis noted that his words and meaning. The Count wants them to meet His Highness first, and then he and Kalara will show them the castle. Kalara has asked the prefecture ruler to watch their soldiers march tomorrow. The Count has made every effort to provide the Crown Prince with a proper escort to the capital. The next day came early morning. Soltis was amazed at how an army could be so disciplined. Kalara noted that her lord had fought countless battles and performed many valiant feats. To be able to fight under such a man is a dream come true for many warriors. They'll give their best even during training, and when the army advances, the Siala prefecture will stand in its way. If Nestonia agrees to cooperate with them, she thinks the lord will be greatly relieved. Clara dropped to one knee, noting that it was not her place to say this as a vassal. But would the prefecture rulers please offer their assistance to her count? Soltis stated to the Count that this was a truly outstanding demonstration. And when they arrive in Seala Prefecture, he, the head of the Nestonia clan, would provide him with his assistance. Alsrod thanked Mr. Soltis for choosing to support the Crown Prince here. As a result, with the help of the Nestonia clan, he launched an invasion into the Seala Prefecture. They crushed the Antoine clan, the most powerful clan in this prefecture. A fleet led by non-Nestonia soon captured the coastal fortress and used it as a staging point to attack their main Midland castle. Unable to defend themselves, the enemy retreated south into the neighboring prefecture of Melia. He now united this prefecture after the last resistance had been crushed. Hassa was so pleased with the Count's triumph over the prefecture that he gave him the title of Marquis. Alsrod ordered to inquire about the remaining petty rulers in Seala, whether they intend to obey his orders and report to him. Yadarigi asked if it was possible to get rid of anyone who was obviously useless. Alsrod stated that as it suited her. The girl noted that she suspected that the remaining rulers of Seala were in no position to do so, even though they obeyed him. If the prefecture army arrived with a superior force, they would most likely join them. Alsrod noted that he would like to calm them down before they caused too much trouble, but he didn't know who he would prefer to entrust with the task. Yadarigi noted that since the prefecture is on the front lines, Mr. Civic would be a good choice. Civic as an old commander would be the best choice for this scenario, and he doubted anyone would envy him. Alsrod announced to Civic that he was appointing him as the Viscount of the 5 counties in Sial, located on the border of Mile Prefecture. Civic didn't realize there were 5 additional counties on the border. Alsrod shared that he took and united a bunch of small clans. They are weak, so they will not be resisted, but honestly, it would be easier to rebel not against him. Civic noted that it would be right to send him there then. Before Civic's arrival in Seala, up to minor rulers who offered him their loyalty had died mysterious deaths. Some rebelled for suspecting him of this, so Civic was sent to suppress them. Subsequently, the forces of another prefecture attacked Civic a few times, but it was only minor skirmishes, nothing serious. Alsrod wondered if there was a way to get to the Melia clan. The maid is sure he knows that Miles' vassals hold a significant amount of power. Alsrod thinks that the power struggle between the main clan and their vassals was so intense that they established a law binding the council to make decisions. The vassals are in conflict with their clan leader, who is trying to control them. Silan, his clan, seems to believe that the only choice is to subjugate him, the Marquis. This is how the vassals clash, and soon an internal rift forms. Alsrod has ordered them to tell them that if they betray Antoine, no harm will come to them, and let Silan's vassals know about it. And it must not be a secret. The girl noted that one of them had also managed to infiltrate the Orsent Cathedral in Fort West Prefecture. And apparently the Archbishop is not averse to taking their side. The Marquis had heard that it was an influential church that practically controlled Fort West Prefecture. Oda Nobunaga couldn't believe there was something like the section from his world. But it was interesting. He had a hell of a battle with the monk, and would see how Alsrod would do. Rappa reported that the head of the Sealan Mila clan had banished one of his major vassals. In response, several of his vassals retaliated, led by his younger brother. As a result, Sealan had to flee his castle. The Marquis has ordered that this be reported to Civic. She also told Sealan that Alsrod was ready to give him his protection. The girl noted that since Silania had been taken in by Antoinus, she doubted that he would officially take his side. Marquis asked her not to worry about it, because he wasn't a determined bastard. The opportunity had finally come. He told her to tell everyone that any friend of Antoine's is his enemy. Marquis announced to Kalar that they were going to His Highness. Sealan finally sent a letter asking for help. The girl realized what time meant. Now King Puffus would have no choice but to flee with his vassals. He still didn't dare to side with Hassa, who called himself the Crown Prince. The capture of Mile Prefecture is only a matter of time. It's time to take over the kingdom. Alsrod has told the prince that now more than ever he is asking to lend him his power. The hour is near for him to become king. And so the 10,000th army marched from Castle Maust to the prefecture of Mile. In this battle, Hassa is the commander, not him. If the crown principal appears here, The king who controls the capital will be forced to side with the vassals of the Mile clan. And then there's no way he can stand up to his cousin who declared himself prince. Laviella has declared themselves ready. It's time to take the capital. All treacherous vassals who attacked Count Silan Mile must be killed. The enemies also include Puffus's generals, and they will be defeated once and for all. Anyone who challenges them is considered an enemy of the royal family. The Marquis has ordered a squad of black wolves to defeat the enemies without any mercy. Hassa noted that the enemy had similarly retreated and settled back into their forts. If they were to prolong the war, why not divide their forces and launch a surprise attack that would allow them to reach the capital more quickly? The Marquis noted that he had plans with nothing to rush. Hassa noted that if they do not hurry, and the neighboring prefecture may pull up more forces. The Marquis asked to be calm now he leads the best army in the kingdom. No problem, since he had given orders to another part of the army under Civic's command. He immediately reported to him about the split in the Mile family forces. He is already on his way to the enemy's main fruit, Dokdo Castle, while devastating their forces in the rear. And then they surround the main forces together with him completely defeat the Mile prefecture forces. Not a few days later, Neon ordered that none of those who resisted be allowed to escape. A soldier reported that Civic had conquered the Mela clan's castle, Dokdo Castle. Salzon Melia, the rightful heir to the clan, has fled to the capital. He reports that most of the enemy army wishes to surrender. The Marquis ordered him to tell them that he accepts their surrender. This plan might have failed if not for that old soldier, a comrade in a rewarding fort, and one of the most trusted generals. This battle will bring a new beginning to their kingdom, and now their journey lies to the capital where they will declare the crown prince the new king. One day, the Marquis made a promise to Civic that he would see the unification of the entire kingdom if he were alive. Laviella urged her lord to endeavor to make the promise come true. Thus, he led his scat through the prefectures of Metzel and Fort West to the prefecture of Fortasut near the capital. Later, the head of the Santira clan and a major force in Fortsite fled for a loss of will to fight. Realizing he couldn't win the war, the king abandoned the capital and fled west with his clan. He will probably continue to call himself king, but abandoning the capital, he will create a terrible impression on the people. Hassa noted that this was the capital, and he never thought he could come back here. The boy burst into tears. I don't know how to express his gratitude. He was very grateful to him. The Marquis noted that it should wait until they enter the capital. Hassa just wants to let him know how grateful he is. Honestly, the sight of him crying made him feel like he was doing him a favor to let him use it. The prince remembered that he also promised to mutilate the title of regent. Regent above the title of vassal ranks high after king. Alsrod will be honored and will strive to be worthy of the role to do all he can to ensure peace in the kingdom. Hassa declared that he would not break his promise. Everyone was amazed that the Marquis was only 23 years old and such a fearless young man. His reputation in the capital is undeniable. Suddenly, the image of the Lord ability was obtained. All abilities that have a certain effect become 3 times stronger when the majority recognizes a person as the supreme ruler. This ability works regardless of how the person earned the recognition. Alsrod was surprised about restoring the ability 3 times stronger. That's already absurdly powerful. One Nobunaga stated that it didn't matter. No sender anywhere better than him. Alsrod think it's probably better to be a reagent than a king. Nobunaga must say the conquest of the capital is indeed a sweet victory. He was just as ecstatic when he took Kyoto, but it won't be long before he faces Hassa. A king is a king, and he's sure he wants to get all the power for himself. When that happens, his fate will depend on how he handles it. But some things are a little different than they were in his time. The former King Puffus, or whatever his name is still alive. But for him, the former Segnu is quickly dead. So the moment young Hassa stops helping him, he will be a target for the former king and others. If Aslarod sides with the former king, that in itself will be the end of Hassa. Clearly will leave the former king and his faction, the Marquis, alive, but it is an option. He should remember, this could be the key to his future. The day after the coronation festivities were over, he was officially appointed Regento. Hassa envies that if he wants something, he should just say the word, and the king will fulfill it as soon as possible. Alsrod said that he would be glad if he would be so kind as to give him a few cities as his territory. In this way, he could accumulate a fortune, and further plans would go more smoothly. The king said that he would do so, and he would also like to talk to him about the meaning of the new rulers. He would like to hear his opinion. There are more old nobles than he expected, even among those who didn't support Hassa. He has no idea what he's doing. Alsrod noted that it would be better to reward those who had served him long in war and politics. Would any of them be able to return after all this time and really follow him if they were chased away from the capital? The king has noted that the regent is right, but he can't give all the land to just his vassals either. Alsrod noted that this is why they should station someone near the capital that they can rely on even if he is not their vassal. If the former king attacks, the current king will be in danger. He should not forget that they are still in the middle of a war. The king has agreed. He thinks it's true that having people who don't know the principles of war is unlikely to serve as a wall if he puts them around. He could get him to distribute the new rulers in a way that would be convenient later. The king thanked the regent. He was able to become king and make him regent. Alsrod stated that this is through for him. The king noted that now he is finally free to talk to him a proposal for his wedding. He has a 13-year-old sister, now in Monastir. Could he not take her as his official wife? Alsrod pointed out that he already has Serafina, daughter of Marquis Ails Galtus, his official wife. So he's afraid he can't take his sister as his wife. It's just not possible. Hassa noted that the king's sister would be much more important than his current wife. It always made him sad to think of having to give her to some lowlife, but now he could give her to him without regret. And he's sure his late father would be very pleased. Alsrod realized it was certainly a good offer. If they have a child, the child will have royal blood in it and become part of the royal family. But how does his current wife feel about it? He doesn't want to break his wife's heart with a political decision alone. Alsrod pointed out that His Majesty's sister is only 13 years old. The dedication ceremony will not be held soon. It will be a long time before the time comes. Hassa stated that he did so without being king, and still alive without a covenant. But now he is king and Alsrod is regent. He thinks it is only natural that they should be united in marriage. Alsrod noted that the king was right. The regent noted that he has just come to the throne, and he himself has become regent. If they are talking about the royal family, he fears that his family preceded him. Serafina remarked that her husband looked even more handsome and sweet in the role of regent. He thanked her and complimented her as well. She looked so elegant for someone who had never been to the capital, as if she had been born here. The girl wondered if he was trying to cheer her up. She was still a little nervous. Coming to the capital was her dream. She had studied the monarchy, but using that knowledge somewhere far away was not the same as the capital. Alsrod remarked that it would be great he could always rely on her. Also, he was a little surprised, but he had something to tell her. She asked him to tell her how his wife was. She was glad to hear of her husband's troubles. Alsrod pointed out that it concerns His Majesty. He has asked to take his sister as his wife, and he would like to hear his wife's opinion on the matter. The girl does not understand why it bothers him so much. He knew he should have refused his offers right away. Alsrod declared that he was not going to accept, but Serafina said he must accept it. She told him she wanted to be a hero's wife. That would not change as a concubine, and she would not become less powerful. But she is actually looking forward to guiding someone so young. She will support him on his path to become a hero, so he can do what needs to be done. They won't win supporting the former king. It's better to have a close relationship with the current king. He will tell the king that he is ready to take his sister as his wife. Serafima states that today, she wants him to give her his love. Alsrod declared that his love for her would never fade. At the agreed hour, he was to meet the king's sister. He was told that she was already here, and an hour had already passed. Oda Nobunaga shared that now he felt someone's presence, and without a doubt there is someone in this room, though that someone is not hostile. The regent noted that someone was hiding behind a curtain. The king's sister was there, stating that he had finally found her. Her name is Lumi, and she is the sister of the current king. The girl notes that he is tall after all. The regent thinks she's just a little princess. She also thought that all men grow beards. Alsrod shared that sometimes the beard bothers him so much that he tears it off. She rarely got to meet a man at the convent, so she was a little scared, so she hid behind the curtains. If he looked like an ogre or Auk, she would have run away. The regent pointed out that they don't live only in the northern lands or on the border. In addition, the girl had heard that Regan had participated in a lot of beats in the past, and therefore assumed that he was a barbarian. Regent replied that he would not deny that he is a barbarian to some extent. He has killed a large number of their enemies. Based on the teachings of her monastery, he could be a terrible scoundrel or something like that. The girl said it wasn't true. She can tell if someone is a scoundrel or not by looking into his eyes. She asked him to lower his head a little. As she expected, his eyes and dreams are fine, which means he's a good man. He can be quite intimidating, but he's not a bad man. And she will be his wife and let him please take care of her. Alsrod clarified that if in fact he is a monster in disguise. Lumi replied that she had served God all her life, and therefore God would not allow her to marry a monster. Oda Nobunaga remarked that he had found a sister rather than a wife, and the girl asked His Excellency if he planned to usurp their kingdom. Alsrod replied that all he cares about is defeating the enemies who oppose the king. The girl is glad to hear that. Oda Nobunaga pointed out that he was lying to his young wife about such a thing. What a bad man he was. Seraphima didn't believe it. She knew she was so Yuna, but she didn't think she would be like this. She is more of a sister to him than a wife. Regent admitted that he had thought the same thing. Seraphim noted that it was probably even encouraging. She would let her be his official wife. Well, he should remember that she loves him more than anyone. If she was selfish, she'd never give him to Lavielle or Fleur. But she's too young to complain about such things. Alsrod declared that his wife was so smart. Alsrod decided to ask Laviella and Clara what they thought was the most important thing he should do as regent. Laviella, think about human resource development. Clara noted that he has more lands to manage. There are restrictions on appointing counselors as magistrates and governors, so it is best to find new people who could be useful. Alsrod agreed. He would promote more and more of their best men, and they would officially serve the royal family. Clara asked if she could make a suggestion. She thought using the merchants of the cities as bureaucrats would be more efficient, and for understanding the country by them. Of course, there is a risk that they can only say what is favorable to the merchants. Alsrod remembered his treasurer, Phanelius. If they find someone with financial experience among the merchants, they will use him. Laviella suggested using the priests. They are also quite knowledgeable. The regent said it was not a bad idea. However, they have various sects, and it is dangerous to let such people close to power. Oda Nobunaga suggested trying to use the Kaki examination system. Alsrod noted that it could be interesting. If all goes well, he may be able to create a bureaucracy under his control. He said he had an idea. Laviella noted that it sounds like a university. Clara stated that this is a rather unusual method as there is no precedent. It is hard to say. Certainly not confused by something so non-Atarax, given that all the officials for this were heirs and came from the nobility. He would try to find someone smarter than the nobles who had passed on their status from generation to generation, but had no talent whatsoever. Hasa was troubled by this proposal. But after they got him focused and informed about the problems in the current system, he agreed to let them test the new position. 3 months passed, and Alsrod and Lumi were married. After the kiss, he became bound by marriage to the royal family and became a step closer to the king's power and influence. Today was the day of the civil service exam. Since the exam was open to everyone, the number of people attending was much larger than he had planned. Laviella noted that not everyone seemed to be trying hard on the test. He handed her a list of questions. The girl stated that she did not know the answer to any of them. The regent noted that it was a good thing she had become his vassal before this test. Laviella asked Clara if she knew the questions. The girl replied that her memory was hazy for the new parts, but thought she could answer about 70%. Laviella noted that she's a genius unlike her. She is afraid now he will be disappointed in her. Alsrod said he wouldn't be. Clara asked her not to be under her breath. She's pretty smart herself. It's what she's always been taught, so it's her forte. Laviella is glad they comforted her, but she thinks at least 1,000 or 2,000 people will fulfill it. Alsrod said 5 to 10 exceptional ones would be enough to start. Uneducated officials often caused conflicts with managers. It is easier to get the job done if you have a basic knowledge of what you are doing. A country cannot be ruled by warriors alone. They need a bureaucratic class, and this exam will be the first step in creating such a bureaucracy. Otherwise, when the time comes to build a country, it will be a huge problem. Someday he'll build a country where he'll be king. He has no choice but to keep going, and in fact, if he hadn't gotten this far, he would have no future. Too strong, but lives with many enemies. The reason this dynasty existed for so long was because the first king worked without rest to lay a clear foundation for the kingdom. Oda Nobunaga said he made the right decision. Creating a system that leaves no stone unturned is crucial to making a profit. Of the approximately 850 people who took the exam, 38 scored the required 70 points. After that, they had the second stage of interviewing the selected candidates conducted by the regent himself, Kalara, his treasurer, Funelius. There was an order to line up and go through one by one. Alsrod asked the man what he thought was the best way to make the country prosperous. He is free to answer as he wishes. The man said they should make weapons. They could win the war using the weapons he created. Wouldn't be too surprising if someone invented a new siege weapon. Asked to bring the weapons. The man told his master that he called it a firearm. Using the power of gunpowder, it ejects a small ball from a metal tube striking an enemy. Unlike a bow and arrow, it is mostly immobilized by the wind and is much more deadly. Compared to a bow, it doesn't take that long to wield. The only drawback is that it does not ignite when wet, making it extremely ineffective in the rain. Finalia introduced himself and asked the man why he had decided to create such a weapon. The man shared that bandits often raid the gnome village where he lives. Usually they can scare them off, but it's hard enough to keep watch at night with only men. It was then that he decided to create a weapon that could be wielded by women and children. He is a blacksmith by profession but has always worked with gunpowder, so he wondered if he could do something about it. Things didn't go smoothly at first. One day he almost died in an explosion. Was he really prepared to die just to create this weapon? The man agreed, because it was his job to make weapons. Alsrod asked the man what his work was. The man replied that it was quite unique, so they might not believe it, but it was called Kunitomo Shu. Oda Nobunaga recognized the name and told him to take it to him now. Kunitomo was a city known to be the home of gunsmiths as well. It was there that firearms were manufactured. He ordered Masu to produce these weapons, which he used to destroy an enemy cavalry regiment. Administrative weapons are very useful. It would help him crush the enemy faster. Alsrod pointed out that he should have told him that earlier. Oda Nobunaga said that if he had told him earlier, he would not have been able to teach him what to do. Words are hard to explain. The regent told the man that he was accepted. However, he was more interested in his weapon than being made a bureaucrat. The man said that if he wanted to, he could show him his power now, and it might also seem like a strange request. But could they replace the tax collector of his village with someone else? Every time he comes to collect taxes, he sets up a feast. The regent heard his request, and depending on his work, he might even waive half the taxes. Finalia noted that the man even put a steel plate on the target. The man replied that if they used the same one for a bow, they could quickly shoot a much longer distance. It would make it easier for them to see the difference. He's only a grasshopper, so he's not very good at aiming. But even at this distance, it's impossible to miss. He noted that it will be quite loud, so they should plug their ears. Alsrod said that from now on, his village would only pay half of the taxes. After that, the level of the Lord's patronage ability was raised. In addition to his economic trade and urban flair, he could identify people possessing outstanding skills. He thought of that ability as good, but it would be better before the interview. Oda Nobunaga stated that it had to be earned. Only if he recognizes that he is capable of achieving the goal himself will he make it easier for him to achieve it in the future. Alsrod now knows not to overlook unusual abilities. He ordered Ortnoba to make and refine his firearms, then asked the treasurer for the man's cooperation in mass-producing these weapons. The second day of the interview came. A girl was invited. Her name is Yanhan Grantrix. The test attracted a variety of people, and he heard the dragon was not from this continent. The girl shared that she arrived in this country 76 years ago and started selling medicines. She now owns 6 stores in the capital city. The regent wondered what motivated the girl to take the path of bureaucracy. He was sure she was familiar with the old traditions and could pass the test. She found it quite interesting and also wanted to share her tea philosophy. Here, Alsrod used the special skill of patronizing a lord and discovered a rare talent. This girl has a special technical skill. He realized this is how the addition to his skill works. It strengthened his intuition. The regent clarified that discernment is not just a drink that is chanted when socializing with co-workers and friends. Yanhan agreed, but there was no soul in it. It was nothing more than idle chatter like the chirping of a bird. Funelia pointed out that her attempts to make dust in her eyes were disrespectful, to say the least. The girl replied that she had no intentions and was very serious. Tea allows you to calm your mind and face your inner self. The treasurer stated that in that case, he would like the girl to be a little more specific. Yanhan stated that just talking about it would be impossible. The treasurer stated that this merchant was very suspicious, and he thought it was best not to be trusted. The regent asked to wait a moment and asked the girl if Dana and some unusual work had been done. The girl stated that he was quite perceptive. Like she said, she came from another continent, so she got her job much later after coming of age 20 years ago. She still doesn't fully understand what the job entails for her. It's called Sen no Rikyu. She wonders why a language like this wasn't available in her homeland. Oda Nobunaga VNA knew what it was, and he thinks he's figured out the workings of this world. People of his seem to function as a professional profession in this world. He's not quite sure how it works, but since there was no Kukai or Prince Satoku, it must be the case. This could mean that the monkey and others could show up too. The girl stated that for some reason after getting this job, she thought someone was talking to her. The regent clarified what was said to her. The voice told her to go tell the world about tea. That is what was said. The treasury knew what the hell she was talking about. Alsrod wondered if Clara had the same thing happen to Akechi Mitsuhide. He approached the girl and wished she would tell him about the soul of tea as she describes it. Perhaps they have something to prepare. The girl declared that if they visited her residence in their usual clothes, she would show them, although she thought it would be rather unusual for such an excellent regent. The treasurer stated that it could be a trap, and suggested sending someone in his place. Aslord said that he can stand up for himself, and besides, Laviella will be with him so we don't have to worry. Alsarold clarified how the background checks on the earlier bureaucrats were going. The Raps said all is well, as they suspected there are still a few informants on the former king's side. The regent is sure some of them were trying to play both sides. It would be very helpful to have a list of people with ties to the former king. There was a further report. Yanhan held many tea parties, which she called tea ceremonies, attended by many bureaucrats and merchants. The regent noted what this very ordinary ceremony means, and whether there is any connection with former king. Rappa that there is not a single hint. It's actually quite a solemn occasion when the host and guest have tea opposite each other in my unusually small room. She seems to have mentioned some religious ideas, although His Excellency doesn't seem to believe in religion himself. It was just his guess, but he thinks that if one dedicates himself to a certain faith, the strength of his work will weaken. Rapp replied that as he wishes. However, if it is found that he does not support the faith, the Council of Orsent may turn against him. He should bear this in mind. The regent said he would keep that in mind. As for the tea ceremonies, he wouldn't know the truth until he saw it for himself. A few days later, they headed to the tea ceremony. The workers were waiting for them, and before entering, each guest needs to lay down their weapons and armor here. That includes His Excellency. Laviella said it was too dangerous to go there unarmed, especially when they hadn't even hired the woman yet. Alsrod thanked the girl for her concern, but they would do as they said. Besides, she has no ties between the former king. Also doesn't think this girl wants her entire clan dead. Laviella asked him to flee at the first sign of danger. It's good to see her so loyal to him. The girl stated that it was because he always had a habit of taking the hit alone. Yanhan greeted him. She was pleased to see him here. She asked him to take a seat. Regent, this is a very strange room. Perhaps it is even the perfect size for a confessional, otherwise sitting and drinking tea is about all you can do here. The girl confirmed that tea is used in the tea ceremony to temper the soul. So having too much of the stuff on hand would just interfere with that. Alsrod noted that I think the color of the tea looks like poison. The girl stated that if he seemed suspicious, she could drink it herself first. Oda Nobunaga would never have thought that someone in this world served green tea. He drank, and she asked him to calm his mind by tasting the tea. Suddenly, it was as if he had moved and was next to Sakura. He said that if it was the afterlife, it wasn't funny. Someone told him it wasn't the afterlife, so he shouldn't be embarrassed to laugh. Yanhan realized that some people become detached from this world. However, apparently there are those who can delve quite deeply into themselves. This is the first time she's seen someone like this. Alsrod, who he is, and where the hell he is. Oda Nobunaga said he had a lot of nerve, though he figured he shouldn't get too angry since he had always been like this. The man introduces himself that he is the conqueror Oda Nobunaga, and he is his work. Here or there he can think what he wants, but he's inside him. Drinking the tea, he must have gotten too deep into himself. I never thought tea would have such a powerful effect. Alsrod finds it hard to believe he's somewhere inside himself, but no other options come to mind. In fact, he couldn't think of any other explanation for what this place is and who he is. It makes more sense to blame it on the tea. Oda noted that as expected from someone who owns it as a job, quick to grasp. Alsrod bets that he's the first to come face to face with his job. Nobunaga stated that not to say it's something impossible. Kai work is personally given by a god in this world and is handled by the priests of this land. The regent asked if he meant that they should be able to communicate with the works given by the gods. Nobunaga agreed. If the job has no personality, then who was he talking to all this time, or was it just an illusion? Alsrod stated that it is logical, and he thinks he should just accept the situation as it is. Nobunaga pointed out that Alsrod is quite beautiful, just like a conqueror. The regent replied that it sounds like he's complimenting Janov on himself. Oda would like to say that, but he means something deeper. He has the face of a man destined to conquer the world. Except for him, and he's never seen anyone else with that look in Japan. Alsrod agreed, and he would like to create his own kingdom someday, but people don't want new dynasties. Nobunaga replies that it looks like he still has a long way to go. Alsrod is determined to go all the way, and he decided to ask him a few questions. Nobunaga stated that he wasn't going to tell him everything he did, and it was much more interesting to watch from the sidelines. Alsrod asked the question to tell him what it's like to have full power, and that's all he wants to know. Nobunaga replied that he had no idea. Truth be told, he doesn't know it himself. Alsrod didn't understand how to score and can't know the feeling. Has he lost his memory? Or has his son or someone else removed him from power? He asked him to tell him that it was not true, for he respects him very much. Nobunaga shared that he was going to stand with the shogun, just like the previous shogun appointed by him. He had the right to install new shogunates. The imperial court offered him the position of shogun or prime minister, but it was in vain because of Mitsuhide. He didn't remember much about the past after that. It sounded like a lame excuse. Once Nobunaga awoke to the afterlife, he became a work in progress. Meanwhile, the traitor Mitsuhide had also died on business. Alsrod asked to tell Nobunaga. He calls himself a conqueror, but he is not. The man resented that he was still the opposite of the conqueror. He was 99% the way of the conqueror. Alsrod was sure he had created his own dynasty and ruled for decades, but he had failed miserably at the best possible moment. Nobunaga wants to see him succeed so he can feel better about his situation. He's just not satisfied with Mitsuhide's death on his own. Alsrod notes that he speaks as if a parent is handing over to his child a dream he couldn't fulfill. Nobunaga said that's exactly what he was saying. His dream is to build his own dynasty, and if he rushes to strive for it, the outcome will be no different. If he fails, he will oust his sister personally as ruler. The conqueror was a simple man. Alsrod was pleased to see his face at last. Nobunaga clarified that he was glad he wasn't as disgusting as the goblin. The regent stated that he was merely confirming that he and he were alike. No one but him could accept him as a job. He wasn't like some god, more like a trustworthy mortal. His path is predetermined either by God or fate, and he is convinced of it. Perhaps Clara and Yanhan have something in common in their work and are all connected. That's why they got the job. Nobunka noted that he is really as smart as he is. Alsrod noted that he was just complimenting you. He doesn't mind such words, but it would be better not to get any recognition at all. Nobunka urged to go in front and make himself a king. He has everything he needs to do that. Yanhan tried to negotiate with His Excellency. He was in a rather deep trance. She didn't think he would enter the tea ceremony state so quickly. He admitted that he had a rather pleasant experience. It wasn't a dream, he's sure of it. He clarified with the girl that she hadn't slipped anything like that to him either. Yanhan said she would never do such a thing. The tea ceremony is to meet face to face with oneself. She thinks His Excellency realized it without realizing it. Alsrod said that the next time he had an important decision to make, he would ask her permission to participate in the tea ceremony again. The girl thought about the fact that just one ready this man, almost the truth of things, seemed to be in contact with the capital's politicians quite often. He decided to inquire as to what she thought he should do to increase his control in the capital. It's just her thoughts as a merchant. The regent said it was an interesting answer and he would find her a good position. He hopes she won't let him down. The girl would be happy to serve him. Laviella asked if it would be a problem to conduct such a test on a regular basis. Alsrod doesn't want too many bureaucrats to maintain the old status quo. The more bureaucrats His Excellency chooses, the more his share of influence will be the capital. Kalara thinks his thoughts on this. People are conservative creatures who fear change. Announcing a change in policy is sure to cause a stir. Then how can he increase his influence? He needs to increase interest and the number of people who will support him. That is the purpose of his tests. Conservatives felt at ease because there was no change in the system. Well, by the time they never realize what's going on, he'll have complete control over everything. Lumi asked her husband if he was really thinking about organizational matters. Alsrod asked what his beloved wife had come to see him about. The princess said she wanted to take a walk, so Serafina brought her here. What a lucky man to have such beautiful wives waiting for him. And another wife from Maust arrived. It was Fleur. The girl remarked that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Lumi was glad that the girl had also come to the capital. Fleur apologized to His Excellency for not telling him. He said it was fine and not to worry about it. He was sure Serafina was involved. Serafina stated that there was nothing wrong with it. She was just doing her job. Fleur stated that she wanted to come to the capital herself. Alsrod noted that they were just thinking of taking a break and wanted to see how they were doing. Alsrod thanked Fleur for coming. The girl wanted to stay by his side and watch history change. He noted that she was a very brave woman. If she were a man, she would make a fantastic general. And she specified that she could ask her brother if she could fight. The regent stated that he could not lose her in battle. He looked at Serafina and realized why she wanted them all in one place. He was so consumed with politics that he didn't have time to pay attention to his wives. Since they're all here, she thought they could use some time together. Clara pointed out that she wasn't married to him. Serafima said it wasn't a problem. I wondered if the princess wanted to properly greet His Excellency's other wives. Lumi confirmed that. She would like to meet everyone. She was also very happy that Fleur had joined them. Serafina and the others told her about her amazing insight. Fleur remarked that it was a pleasure for her, although there is you for their difference in status, so she wonders if she's okay with that. Lumi doesn't want to talk about it, and they all play the same role in supporting His Excellency's family. Serafina clarified think for her husband that her idea was not. Alsrod agreed that it would be nice for him to spend time like this sometimes. She asked if he had spent the night with the princess. Alsrod said that there was no way such things could wait until she was an adult. Seraphim asked him not to complicate things too much, or he would have a mistress. Serafima asked Lavielle to have a drink with them. Why be so serious? And they could have fun together. Have a drink. Laviella noted that the girl was already drunk. Serafina asked the princess why she shouldn't try to get closer to her husband. I shouldn't worry. Her darling likes aggressive girls. Lumi was a little frightened. Alsrod told her to threaten to say such things. If she corrupted her, he would remove her from being her mentor and entrust her to Fleur. Serafina stated that she would be careful, but he must be honorable. Lumi noted that his body was so muscular not at all like her brothers. Alsrod said it was the result of time spent on the battlefield. The princess didn't understand why she found it hard to breathe when she touched him. He doesn't think it's something you can learn in a convent. Clara would like to discuss their upcoming diplomatic itinerary. They have a big event coming up, and she would like to set up a meeting. His Excellency clarified about the church meeting. In the capital region alone, it could gather up to 20,000 people. If you gather all the fortresses in the kingdom, that number will reach up to 100,000. People who fight for their ideals must have the strength of will, and they could cause them trouble if they became their enemies. Alsrod remembered Rappa's words about the Orsent Church. They had fully supported their cause throughout the battle in Mela Prefecture. Nobunaga had urged to never trust priests. Priests value holiness, but what they do in the shadows is pure madness. Better to be open and fair to their madness as he was. The regent isn't sure if that's fair, but he understands what his work is about. Assuming they're only interested in religion will only lead to more problems. At the moment, the church is on their side, but who knows what the future holds for them. Alsrod thanked Archbishop Kamido for coming. The Archbishop presented Regent Alsrod with magnificent gifts, whether intended as a token of friendship. Alsrod shared that they had prepared a treat for him and would be happy to discuss their business with him at the table. Kamido thanked him for his concern. There was no one so young with such strength and his devotion to His Majesty worthy of admiration. Alsrod noted that as a servant of the royal family, wasn't that natural? The Archbishop apologized for those words. Let them be read as the ramblings of an old man. The regent must say that his gifts were magnificent. The Archbishop noted that the gentleman has an excellent eye for aesthetics, since he was able to appreciate the value of these items. Alsrod noted that the Orsent Church seems to have succeeded in trading in the West. Most of these gifts came from trade with the West. The Western lands are also where the former king is hiding. There was a risk that the Council of Orsent. The Archbishop stated that this relationship is made by their devoted followers. They have many followers in the West. The regent noted that they have the support of the trust of many of their following. As an inexperienced young regent, he would appreciate further assistance from the Archbishop. Kamido will pray that His Majesty will have a long and peaceful reign. Laviella stated that there is something strange about this man. She can't believe he hasn't said a word to me fucked with his real thoughts. It seems he was just probing the ground. Alsrod said there was no room for error. It was a fruitful negotiation, by the way. Better to know something than nothing. Hassa didn't realize if he was sure he wanted to be here. They are in a city near the capital or even a larger city. The regent confirmed that he wanted to collect taxes in this city. He has deliberately chosen a few cities that have friendly relations with the Church of the Orsent. He's thinking of stationing some of his bureaucrats there for their efficient work. These cities pay church tax to the Orsent Cathedral and are controlled. He's afraid the church will react negatively because this decree would give them influence over him. Alsrod, check with Rappa about the church. Rappa said there's been no change. Apparently it's hard for them to say anything here since they're completely out of it or they think it's not a good time for war yet, and we need to shake them up better. 2 months later, he sent troops to Shinju Prefecture west of the capital to massacre the rulers hiding enemies in the king. Is it true that he said to advance slowly? He's apologized and hopes he'll give a reason. Rumor has it their forces are weak. If they get them to underestimate them, they can always pretend to be friendly. No one didn't realize who he was talking about. Alsrod noted that if they did not intend to defend their claim to the cities, there was only one answer. Suddenly, a soldier appeared with a report and announced that the Great Church of Orsent had raised its troops to attack their excellency. Alsrod rejoiced. Laviella didn't understand how he could be happy that they could be pinched from both sides. Alsrod stated that they would be. She asked him to explain or no one would understand. He reminded her that before she said that, there was something strange about the Archbishop. However, this time he did the most logical thing and attacked them. So it's easy to see how he's going to act now. First of all, Orsent Cathedral is strong because it has money. The merchants and artisans have a lot of faith in them. Naturally, it brings the cathedral a lot of income. The cathedral has all the power in the vicinity of the capital, and even a city without power must rely solely on the church. The cathedral rules not only Fort West Prefecture, but also the surrounding prefectures. But when Alsrod, the regent, came into play, he did not want to lose his advantage, so he kept his ties with the former king. So he asked His Majesty for the right to levy taxes on a city chosen by the cathedral. Lavielle realized he was trying to provoke the church. He decided it was better to expose them first than let them betray him at the last minute. If he consolidated his power, the cathedral would be much harder to resist. Nobunaga noted that it was very risky, and what if they ended up getting killed? Alsrod noted that he himself had warned against trusting priests. However, Nobunaga did not expect him to go so far as to provoke them. Alsrod is a warrior at heart, and frankly gets bored winning by brute force. Nobunaga checked with him to see if he thought taking risks was fun, but not a damn thing like that. The regent said it's all right. After all, he's Alsrod, and not Nobunaga Oda. Nobunaga pointed out that they have no choice but to form a rear guard against the Western rulers and run back that out of strength. The priests would not dare leave the capital. Alsrod ordered Noen to go to the enemy cities and convince them to cooperate, and if they refused, to raze the city to the ground. Nobunaga did not understand why he did not retreat. Alsrod stated that whether they are allied with the church or not, they will find out what happens to those who defy them. He called on all of them to show him. Laviella stated that she would show exactly what she could do better. Nobunaga thinks he's just a damn fool, more of an idiot than he was as a child. Alsrod clarified if he had a problem with religious groups. Nobunaga stated that the monasteries were much more of a thorn in his side than Takeda. They attack with a united front. Crazy fanatics who don't run from death. Alsrod decided that he would attack first. Nobunaga says he'll tell him one last time. If he can solve this problem within 2 days, it will be too late. The cathedral followers and others will come after him. Alsrod said he could do it in 2 days.